This is my problem is I took a nap and I think I slept so hard that I just like was like in some fetal position. Then when I tried to move, I was like, "Wah! I'm dead. I'm dying."
We've all hit that age now where you can sleep wrong and mess up.
That's exactly it.
No, are you done with me?
Bam.
Get out of
He
here.
says I'm too loud, so I have to push this. He says, "You're like louder than everyone."
Thank you.
How's your dog?
Okay, I got it.
Pain, still a lot of pain.
Yes, yes.
I'm sorry.
They were so cute.
What's the significance of another week? What's the? Oh,
I think that's the problem.
discomfort.
Which is all.
That is awesome.
Right.
Hopefully that gives her some relief.
Yeah, right.
This is my third one.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is. Debbie might know.
Sure. Name and password for USD.
The one in the back.
That would be your email address and your email password.
This one has been Joe.
It was a pleasure.
We go with guests. Don't we use guests when we're?
Most of us use guests, but if you want to use the admin one, it's all based off of email addresses. It's all part of our system. Same thing to get you in the copiers.
Oh.
You need to.
Okay, all right, good to know.
You want me to get David for you?
No.
He's right there. He's right there in the hallway.
Just
I
to
know he
the
is.
agenda from the one that was on.
My, speaking of David, my Adobe is being wonky again.
Okay,
Yeah, there's a fix for it.
got it.
I was having a problem.
I don't remember what it is. He told me. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
it's a licensor thing.
I'm sorry, I will quit asking.
Adobe.
I
My
know.
bad.
They like to get their money.
I feel so
That's-
bad. All the
that's the thing.
emails you send out, and I'm just like, oh my poor thing.
I thought you were coming by yesterday.
Of course it did. Yeah.
What are you backing up for? You're afraid she-
Hey, Tom, I think after the Nelson Creek comes, they're gonna do something after they do the pledge.
I understand.
So I do need to get that done
I was expecting. that.
before Thursday.
I'll be gone tomorrow night.
All right, well, I guess Wednesday it is. I just need you to give the official no, and that way when I go on Thursday, I can, which I already said, I don't think.
All right, now.
I know, I just need to say that we did the due diligence. It's quiet. 6:59.
I want to call this meeting to order of the Haysville USD 261 Board of Education. Let the record show all but one board member is present. Courtney's not with us tonight. And we'll start this up. We have a bunch of youngins here. I'm surrounded. That's good.
Yes, yes.
Nelson Grade School. So if you all would like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I see we have instruments and we didn't use those yet, so there must be more planned here.
Yay.
Parents, if you want to come on in, you're welcome. Come on in if you want. Take all the pictures you'd like. Move around wherever you want to be.
Mackenzie, Juliana, Chesney. Juana, Awabariki, Juana, Awabariki, Juana, Awabariki, mi lele. Kincha Juana, Juana, Awabariki. Kincha Juana, Juana, Awabariki. Who's at the door? Haslin, Golden, Jackson, Mason. Awabariki, Juana, Awabariki, Juana, Awabariki, mi lele. Teacher Juana, Juana, Awabariki. Teacher Juana, Juana, Awabariki.
I would ask you to introduce yourselves, but I think everybody's already introduced themselves.
Yes.
Can you translate the song for us?
Yes, it's Swahili and it means may God bless you.
Good job,
Thank
guys.
you.
Great
That's
job.
awesome.
Parents, you get all the pictures you need?
Yes.
Thank you, kids.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job. Nice job.
Well, if that doesn't get you started, I don't know what does, okay? Next thing is the president's announcements. I have a couple of things. One is, and I didn't give this unto you, Debbie, but I want to thank all the schools for the bags that we got last month. The things that were in there were far and above anything I could have expected, so thank you. And the t-shirts, I'll be wearing your t-shirts, thank you. I want to call the board's attention to these dates. On May 14th at 10 a.m. is the Haysville High School commencement ceremony. On May 15th at 1:30 p.m. is the campus high school commencement ceremony at WSU. And then on May 16th is the West Middle School parade at 7 o'clock at West Middle School. And on May 17th is the Haysville Middle School parade at the Haysville Middle School. So,
7.
What are the times? of the
yep,
parades?
7.
All of them are at 7. The parades, yeah.
The 2 parades, the 2 middle schools are at 7.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know if you were aware of it. If you weren't aware of it, you've been out of the country or something, had your phone or TV turned off. But last weekend, the swim group did Swim for a Wish. Do not make out a check to them for Swim for a Wish because they slap you on the hand. I found out.
Right along.
This year, they have raised to date, the recap this afternoon, campus had raised $13,128. And overall, they have raised $23,150 this month. And if you continue, will continue to donate to that organization, we do have a website that you can go to and handle that. And Kelly, stand up back there. Thank you for doing that. How many years have you done this, Kelly?
I'm sorry,
How many years have you done this?
this was our 10th one.
And how many millions of dollars have you raised?
We are hoping the money we get this year will put us over the 300,000 mark.
Good job.
That's amazing.
And the only other thing I got is a site council representation. I know there was some discussion, you weren't here last month, you were sick last month, about changing some schools because of being able to go to at these meetings. Do you have a problem? You were going to go to Nelson, right?
She's got a kid at Nelson.
And
I
would you
think
take
whichever,
campus?
but we thought that maybe you wanted to do campus.
Yeah, I'll do
so
campus.
Okay.
Yeah, Nelson.
That's fine by me.
And where was the other one we had, Debbie?
Ruth Clark.
Courtney.
Courtney took.
Courtney took it. So we've got all the schools covered now?
Yes, okay.
All right, very good. Thank you for your cooperation on that. And that's all I have at this time. Mr. Hirsch?
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Reed. Ms. Reed, if you would like to share our first 2-6 Wonderful recipient award.
Yes, I would. Thank you. All right, our first USD 2-6 Wonderful person is Caleb McCaffrey. And he was nominated by Principal Carla Wolf, who is also here. I'm going to read Carla's nomination. Caleb, if you would come up. All right, so this is what Carla said about Caleb. I am nominating Caleb McCaffrey to be recognized as a 2-6 Wonderful employee for many reasons. Caleb goes above and beyond for his students and our staff. He is the poster child for how one caring educator positively impacts our students in our community. When I had to be gone last week to care for my mother, Caleb represented Ruth Clark and facilitated our building in service. Caleb is a highly effective teacher, the epitome of professionalism, a model of integrity, and just a wonderful, kind, and caring human being. It has been my privilege to watch Caleb grow from the time I first knew him as a scrawny little 5th grade student when I taught at Nelson to the mature, responsible, caring adult he is presently. Congratulations, Caleb. I think you two should have the picture since you. Yes.
We'll get his wife too.
Oh, no.
I understand that totally, Carla.
Thank you.
Caleb, here's a copy, so you can always read.
Dr. Clegg.
Ms. Yoder, if you would step forward, please. Louetta Yoder worked with David Herbert, all of our principals and secretaries to compile and submit the Office of Civil Rights Data Collection Report. Now, what is the OCR DCR, you may ask? I'm glad you did. Here are some sample questions from the report. Number of full-time equivalent of first and second year teachers and FTEs meeting all state licensing / certification requirements disaggregated by race, gender, and ethnicity. That's one. Number two, number of single-sex academic classes. Number three, number of preschool students aged 3 through 5 who've received corporal punishment and/or were expelled. It takes months, boldface, underlined, all cap, months to collect the data from each school, compile it, reconcile it, and report it. The final report is approximately 1,100 pages of perfection. Louetta will tell you the best part of this report is that this was her last one. Congratulations.
That's probably what drove her to retire.
If only we'd known a few years ago.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Erica, you would like to announce our next recipient?
Yes, Pam. So as Carla had watched
Caleb grow. Pam actually has watched me grow over the years. So I was really excited to be here tonight to be able to share this with Pam. And I've had the pleasure when I was working at campus, I don't know how many years ago, 2005, a while ago, I was able to coach with Pam alongside her. And it was the most amazing years to be able to be part of the coaching staff for the cheerleading. I learned a lot, but so Mr. Morford is the one who shared this information and nominated you for your head coach position. You were recently named the state 21-22 Spirit Coach of the Year for Kansas by the Kansas State High School Activities Association. And with that recognition, you were put into the running for the National Federation of High Schools Region 5. That includes Kansas, Nebraska, North and South Dakota, and Minnesota. And you were chosen as District 5 winner. And now you're running for the National Coach of the Year, which will be named later. And we'll keep our fingers crossed. You have been the Spirit Coach at CHS for over 35 years.
Wow.
Any memories you want to share with us? Best memories?
I have so many. No memories. Just like in this position, it's not something you don't do if you don't enjoy it. Like you just can't. Like there's, you deal with a lot of stuff, but I wouldn't keep doing it if I didn't love it. I love being with the kids. I love, being part of the school and part of the games. It's been great. It's been fun.
Yeah, the leadership that she provides to all of those yell leaders and cheerleaders, because over the years we've had many yell leaders.
We have. Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Congrats. And I have to give you a hug.
Oh,
Morford, do you want to come up here?
Nikki also was one of my assistant coaches.
Yes, she was.
Was one of your coaches?
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm. Congratulations, Pam. Dr. Schutte.
All right. Well, I have a little bit of a slideshow of mine. Robin doesn't mind coming up here. And for the board, this is Robin Darbyshire, one of our teachers. And I received the information for this nomination, and I thought really the social media presentation of this information presents itself on how far some of our teachers are willing to go above and beyond for our students. And I hopefully, by the looks of your face, enjoy the activities we participate when we have with our students. So on one of our recent snow days, Robin did invite her students out to do some sledding, including taking sleds to use and participating. And so what we have here is actual photographic evidence of teachers participating with students and enjoying the snow and sledding that took place most recently. And for that reason, Robin Darbyshire is one of our USD 261 wonderful recipients.
Just one, oh, sorry.
Googie.
Okay. Just one quick little story. When I first got to the park, I got out and I'm a grandma. I didn't ask my 2-year-old granddaughter if I could use her sled that day. I'm sure it was fine. I got out with my little penguin sled and I saw the kids. I'm like, oh yeah, those are my friends up there. So I go up there with my sled and I look around and they're friends, but nobody I know yet. So here I was, 50-year-old with a penguin sled, just waiting to sled down. But it was very fun. It was a blast. So
It was.
basically I'm getting this award because I'm a 10-year-old trapped in this 50-year-old body. And I love to do kids things. So I'm like, guys, if we get a snow day, do you want to go sled? Like, yeah, we do. What time? What time? 2. Let's do it. So yeah. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Congratulations to all of our recipients this evening. Again, examples of how USD 261 staff go above and beyond. One, to build relationships with our kids that last a lifetime. The other thing, the work that Louetta put in I will tell you, is monumental. Months of work, and we greatly appreciate that. So Caleb, thank you for being a leader in your building and stepping up and assisting Carla when she was out. We greatly appreciate your leadership. So we're very proud of all of you. So congratulations. Couple other just quick notes I have for you. I want to share with the board. If you didn't know this, we had 2 wrestlers from Campus High School who did very, very well this past weekend at state wrestling. Dylan Schuyler, 120-pound 6A state champ. Very impressive. Aiden Williams was a 6A state runner-up at 182 pounds. Both very, very great accomplishments for our kids at campus. Want to let you know that sub-state basketball is going on this week. Girls play tomorrow at 7 at Derby. Boys play Wednesday at 7 at Derby. Then state bowling is on Thursday this week. And just want to let you know the boys start at 8:50, correct, Jen?
Yep.
8:50, and it's at North Rock Lanes. And the girls are at 1:50. And Jen, share with the board real quick, how many of the girls won?
The girls have won 4 straight, so this will be their 5th consecutive year of winning 6A state.
So our girls will be, and then our boys finished 3rd at regionals and our sub-state, and were able to make it into the state tournament.
Absolutely. Yes, this will be their 5th consecutive year at state, and they've won one of those 5.
So get a chance, go out and support our kids this week. Spring sports, believe it or not, started today, which is absolutely amazing. And then finally, I want to let you know that on March 24th, and I'll send you more details as the date approaches, we have our campus high school Stuco and Board of Education breakfast at campus. Jeremy had told me early on that was something that the board had been doing over the last few years and haven't been able to with COVID. So that will be in room C16. But again, I will send you information about that so that you're aware of that event, and hopefully you all can make it. That's all that I have.
I forgot one thing, sir, if I may. Last Thursday, our school-based healthcare received a little bit of a donation from Credit Union of America, and generously gave us $16,000 to go towards our activities down there. So thank you, Beth, and your crew for helping accomplish that. Without you guys, we couldn't. So thank you for that.
And if I may, one note, KU matched that. KU Med matched it. So the total of the grant was $32,000. And that money will go towards social emotional support for kids visiting the clinic that families feel like they need that support. So great day for our health clinic.
Cold, but a great day. I failed to introduce our police officer tonight. He's also, stand up back there, JD. I know you can hear me. He's also this resource officer at campus. And if you haven't been to a football game or a basketball game, JD should be our head cheerleader. Because at halftime, he gets the kids fired up. They don't even leave the area until he's done with them. But JD, thank you for what you do. Thanks for being here tonight. I know the kids love you up there. Thank you for being here. And next on the agenda is Miss Maddie, or is Miss Maddie here?
Yep.
Oh, she's hiding behind the curtain back here.
Hi, I'm Maddie. I'm campus's student body president. So on February 14th to the 16th, we had Teacher Appreciation Week, and appearances each day we do something nice for the teachers. And like on Monday, we gave out candy bars and water. Tuesday, we gave I think it was a snack again, and we gave them a free drink from stopping grounds, which is the coffee shop at campus. And then on Wednesday, we gave them another snack and water, and then we made a video from different students saying thank you and that they appreciate them. And it was actually really big success, and some teachers said it was the best Teacher Appreciation Week they've ever had. And coming up, we had the Gym 5K on April 23rd at Biggs Park. We picked up beneficiary, which is Cindy Elliott, who, for people who do not know her, she's the HWMS secretary, and right now she is fighting breast cancer. So we'll be doing a 5K to help raise money to help pay for some of her treatments. And then once again, school board, you guys already heard, school board breakfast is coming up, and on March 24th at 7:30 at campus in room C16. So if you guys can make it, that'd be awesome. If we can show how much we appreciate you guys. that's it. Okay.
Thank you, Maddie. We'll see you next week. New and good. Anybody got anything new and good they want to add to our agenda here tonight? No?
I forgot to,
Everything was
I
gonna
forgot to
share.
tell Debbie, but I know. Had Nelson Site Council last week, 2 weeks ago. Or whenever parent teacher conferences was. And they are still improving on their post-COVID test scores and getting back up where we need to be. So that was very good.
Anybody else have anything? We've had a lot of good stuff come out already tonight. There's always room for more. No? All right. 1.7, approve agenda or amend agenda. And I need to amend the agenda. Under 5.0, we need to enter healthy relationships. In 6.0, we need to add Grand Lane right of way. And
6.4.
6.4, yeah. I'm sorry, what did I say?
6.0 is the overall. then,
Okay,
so-
6.4, sorry. I just missed the 4. And at your chairs, there was some additional personnel and some additional grants at your seat for consent agenda later. So I need a motion to add those 2 items to the agenda, please.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda. Amend the agenda as stated.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bain, seconded by Dr. Norton to amend the agenda to add 5.0 healthy relationships and 6.4 Grand Lane right of way. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed?
Sorry, I was writing.
I'm in favor, yes.
Motion carried. 2.0 district personnel. and Patron time. I have no one on the list and everybody left us, so I don't guess there's anybody back there that wants to talk to us. So we'll go on to 3, consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Bennett, a second by Ms. Ramsayer to approve the consent. Did I get that close or close?
Close enough.
Close enough. To approve the consent agenda.
I'll take
Any
it.
further consent? Any further discussion? All in favor, say, whoops, raise your hand.
Whoops, raise your hand.
Yeah. Well, I got it all in there.
I
That's
said
all.
it
supposed to
right.
say?
Whoops, raise your hand. Pretty sure that was the direction.
All right. 4.0 treasurer's report.
I'll move to approve the treasurer's report as presented.
Second.
Got a motion by Dr. Norton and a second by Mr. Bennett to approve the treasurer's report as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Reports. Focus on learning, district calendar.
I will turn this over to Mr. Craig and Ms. Cotton.
Thank you for letting us join you tonight. We are going to present on kind of the presentation on calendar options and how we came to looking at multiple calendars and presenting those to staff for a vote. So through the District Professional Advisory Committee, the DPAC, we have multiple representation from that, from teachers at different levels. I know Mr. Bennett serves on that, Mr. Morford, Mrs. Mullen, we all serve as the administrative representative. And then we have a lot of teachers, and they're the ones that are really driving this work and really providing input into the work that we're doing with calendar options. So the first goal was to come together and create multiple options for calendars to present to staff for a vote. And I'll kind of walk us through the process that we went through. And this Ms. Cotton is going to follow it up at the end. So first thing again was that goal to create multiple calendar options to take to staff. The second task that we did as a DPAC team was sit down and really identified criteria that we would like to see in calendars that support student learning. And then we were to go back to our staffs within our schools and gain feedback in what they were looking for. Some of the things that I know options in getting that feedback from staff were specific PLC meetings. So teachers held meetings with their grade levels to talk about those criteria that and feedback that they wanted to see in calendars. I know exit tickets were a big one as well. At the end of an in-service or professional development day, we had the opportunity to give them an exit ticket so they could provide that feedback at a platform that was anonymous, but open and honest. Department chairs held meetings with their staff as well. And then the Google Form surveys that came out through exit tickets or just feedback data warehouse. Once we got the feedback, we brought that together and we were broken into teams of 4. And each person within that group worked individually on a calendar. And then once those 4 calendars were created, in my group anyway, the 4 gap calendars were created. We solidified one calendar that we would like to take to the entire group when we got back at another DPAC committee meeting. And Ms. Cotton will talk about that last kind of step that we went through and how we came to where we are now.
Yeah, thanks. So at our last meeting, we kind of did like a gallery walk. So I think there was 5 groups and Mr. Hirsch had them blown up for us and we put them all on the wall and we got to go around and look at those. But we also had each group kind of present the differences of all the different calendars. And some were just like some minor changes and then some were pretty big changes and really thinking outside of the box. So it's kind of exciting to see that. Personally, I'm an outside of the box teacher. So like seeing those big changes is like, oh yes, we're gonna have some movement. And then after we got to hear all those presentations, we got to go look at them and Mr. Hirsch provided us with a couple of dots. One color was our first choice and the other color was our second choice. We went and voted on those. And then the top 2 calendars were presented and presented to staff to vote on. And then they chose the one that they would like. And that's the one that we're presenting to you tonight.
So in front of you, you have 2 calendars. There's a draft 1 and a draft 2. It was 80% in favor of draft 2 among the staff. All staff, any staff member in the district was eligible to vote on the survey. And they were given both calendars to choose from. And as I stated earlier, draft 2, which there's a couple of points I want to make for you as a board. One is, you will see that there is a week at Thanksgiving, which seems to be pretty popular among our students, staff, and families. But with that, the committee, it was Mr. Morford's committee, I think, that created this calendar. We gave up Veterans Day being out of school. One of the things we talked about was the importance of kids learning about Veterans Day and why we have Veterans Day. We felt that was very, very important. And so our belief was if kids are in school, we can teach lessons, we can do activities associated with Veterans Day that we believe is more meaningful. So that's one of the days. Dave, where'd you get your second day? Oh, that's right. Yep. After that, Clint ran all the calendars through metrics that we have to meet with the state to meet the 1,116 hours, and also our senior time that they have to meet. And all of the calendars met that. If not, Clint let them know that this wouldn't fly, and this is why. One thing we did also do, all groups did, was moved the September in-service to the 16th. As you recall, count day is the 20th. And previously it had been on the 23rd, which is in the middle of count day, and that's not a good thing. So we got that changed to the week prior. And then Jeremy was the board rep. Jeremy, I don't know if you want to add anything from your perspective of serving on the committee.
Well, I missed the first 2 meetings about the calendar due to work, but coming on the last meeting where we went through all the calendars, hearing what everybody wants and whittling it down was an interesting process. And a lot of times in this room, we don't really hear from the teachers as much, and being a part of that committee, you definitely get more input from the teacher. And I think it's a valuable experience and to hear what they have to say. And it was a good experience. I hope to be there the whole time next year.
And the members of the committee were chosen by their principals, their leaders in their buildings, teachers that are highly respected among their peers. We ask principals to recommend, those types of teachers for us, and that's how that committee was formed. We do meet monthly. We go over the board agenda each month. I inform them so they can take it back to their committees. We also talk about some different activities. We do some leadership stuff, and it's been a good committee, I think. At least I think it's a great committee, but you have to ask the teachers about it, really. So, but anyway, this is the calendar that they are coming to you tonight as a first read, presenting draft 2 as the option that they would like for the board to adopt for the 22-23 school year. Ms. Cotton or Mr. Craig, anything else from your perspective?
I did, just on this specific calendar, did we add a day that work, or the work day and in service after Christmas break to
the 4th.
Moved them around a little bit.
to minimize the amount of 4-day weeks coming back off of a Christmas break? So I just wanted to point that out as one of the other additional changes for that specific calendar. And Mr. Hirsch has been very transparent and open about this committee and his wish for this committee to kind of stay together for multiple years. So this process is, we see this process through and really have time to work through these calendar options and impact students the best that we can through our calendar options.
And then sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go right ahead.
I just wanted to mention on the Veterans Day, we had discussed having veterans come in and either present to our classrooms, or you could have like an assembly where you invite them to come out and really engage our students in Veterans Day. This year I teach first grade at Nelson, and my first graders were so into Veterans Day. And when we learned about America and stuff, that I think that having actual veterans come in. My husband's also a veteran and my son is active duty right now. So having them actually come in and they can physically see and hear them, or, have the band come out and play or things like that. That's something that we can engage our students in as well. So that was one thing that we felt as teachers that we could really enhance our students' education about veterans. So.
Thank you, Ms. Cotton, Mr. Craig, for doing that. Jeremy, for being on the committee. I do appreciate it. It makes it a lot easier when we get the input from the people that it affects, more than just us sitting up here at the table and making decisions for you.
I will also share that we met with the principals last week in our leadership team meeting before the board to go through the agenda. And one of the things we discussed extensively was the importance of thinking now about next Veterans Day and starting to plan for activities. So we've gotten that in front of our principals as well, so that they can start processing that and thinking about how they can do that within their building. But like Ms. Cotton said, having those individuals standing in front of our kids and engaging with them to me, is a great learning experience. So, but that's one thing we do want you to be aware of, because I understand that can be a day that, some people feel like should be off, should be in school, but the committee felt strongly in feedback that kids will learn more being in school that day.
We're one of the last districts that let out on Veterans Day, weren't we? I know my 2 granddaughters in Andover and Mays both had school and did that type of activity on the day.
My previous life, they worked that day.
So it's not all bad. So thank you very much.
Yep.
We will
Thank you.
bring this next month as an action item. And I'll refresh my memory. Draft number 2 is the one that your people wanted, correct?
Sorry, what was that?
Option 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, option 2. And don't forget it. No.
That's your number.
Ms. Cotton, thank you, and Mr. Craig for being here this evening, taking time away from your families. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, SPED. Angie?
Yes. Just hit on, right?
Yeah, it was on.
It's coming up. No, we have
Thanks,
tech,
David's in the wings.
we have tech director to clarify.
we'll let the tech director do it then.
Boy, he makes the big bucks.
That's right.
Thank you. All right, so I get to present about the department. So student support services includes early childhood at risk, as well as parents as teachers, and then special education as well. The early childhood and parents as teachers will visit with you, I believe maybe sometime June-ish. Is that about when? So I will skip over those pieces because you will have some presentations on that. So there's the teachers and the staff with early childhood. But we'll move into the director position. So I won't go over all of this, as you know, to keep it brief. Special ed has a lot of pieces to it, but we'll just kind of hit the high points. But I do a lot of the recruiting and hiring for certified staff evaluations. So I have parents as teachers director, Tri-City Day School administrator evaluation, as well as the assistant director, and then all the related service staff. And we do that collaboratively. So I bring in the administrators on those evaluations, and the administrators bring in special education administrators on the special education teacher evaluations. We have procedure guides that are updated annually, budget, legal questions. Lucky enough, usually we get chosen for the audit at the beginning of the year, always with our federal funds, but we also have another audit that we have every year for our categorical aid. So we usually get 2 audits each year. We have a grant that we write, a targeted improvement grant. I support the assessment coordinator with the dynamic learning map. So she's kind of more of those technical pieces. I'm more of the IEP decision team making process. We have emergency safety interventions that I oversee. MANT training, all of the related service meetings that we hold, usually monthly, sometimes it's less monthly, depending on what the schedule looks like. Our transition program that moved back this year, Project Life, we oversee that piece. At risk and SPED early childhood oversight, parents as teachers, Tri-City Day School, all of our special programs, positive behavior supports, life skills, and our structured learning programs. We have a lot of IEP quality compliance checks that we do. We oversee now multiple private schools. Years ago, it used to be that we only saw the one in our district. Now we have to look at those students that are within our district that attend private schools outside of our boundaries, which we have 4. So right now we're servicing students from 4 different private schools that are attending 4 different private schools. And then any homebound inquiries. So sometimes our students receive homebound services based upon their needs. The assistant director, she does a lot of support with general education intervention, so progress monitoring data and looking at whether or not a student should be referred for a special education evaluation. She does a lot of the content forms and support within our IEP program. So our IEP program, WebKids services a lot of districts, but it is very specific to each district. So you can modify your different forms to fit your district, how you would like to do that. She oversees paraeducator interviewing and hiring alongside of the administrators, the paraeducator orientation. She oversees the procedure guide. We have a staff planning document that helps us support our categorical aid system that we work within. And then any personnel report she oversees, and then the paraeducator in-service requirements. So there's a lot of pieces with paraeducators that we have to submit to the state that she oversees. She does part of the IEP quality compliance checks, MANT training as well. So there's 3 trainers within the district. She oversees the assistive technology team that we have in our district and any purchasing of assistive technology devices. My learning plan. So we have both certified staff as well as our paraeducators that enter data into my learning plan for either recertification or collecting in-service hours for our categorical reimbursement for paraeducators, or if they'd like to move over on our classified pay scale by earning different professional learning hours. She oversees our Infinitech. So Infinitech is an online learning program that all of our staff have access to, not just special education and not just certified. It's all staff that have access to that program. And then she also has been supporting me in staff evaluations. So we do multiple observations so we can get different feedback pieces. We have 3 special education secretaries, 4 counting the early childhood, which we'll go over later. Gina Latta, she is what we call our MIS data clerk. So we have about, I would say, anywhere from 100 to 150 students that move in and move out throughout the year. We're very transient. And what she has to do is within our MIS program, she has to send records to accepting districts or request records for students that are moving into us. So she facilitates that process with different districts. She enters all of our MIS data, which is management information systems. So from our IEP program, and uploads it into SPED Pro. That's called 618 MIS data. It's quite the process. So we have 1,100 IEPs that have to be submitted to the state reporting, and multiple IEPs sometimes occur with different students within the year, which then she has to upload every single time an IEP happens into that system. She does the technical pieces with WebKids. So starting the school year, inputting our calendar, inputting our service providers, you have to start that process every year. She does answer a lot of questions for staff in terms of, again, the MIS data. So she answers some of those questions that staff kind of ask, like what setting do I put? What building do I use? Things like that. She does our purchase orders. So anything that we purchase, she enters that into the program. And then she also collects mileage or extra duty forms from our staff that then submits through the EREC system. New to us this year is Trish Greenlee. She came from Tri-City. She was the secretary over there, and she has been amazing. Probably going to nominate her for the USD 261 Wonderful Award because she is very, very organized and spits out spreadsheets, which I know you know that. So she's been really, really good for us. We switch these responsibilities around because we found over the years with KSDE changing their collection systems to more difficult programs that one person couldn't handle both systems. So we split up the CAP system as well as the MIS. So Trish oversees our categorical aid system. And so she looks at highly qualified classified staff. So what that means, all of our paraeducators have to be highly qualified. They either have to have a degree or they have to take a para assessment in order for us to get reimbursement. She also does the in-service input into the system. So that in-service hour. She also oversees Paraeducator Network. That's how they take their para assessment to become highly qualified. The CAPS, the Categorical Aid Personnel System, and I'll talk about this a little later, but that's where we then upload all of our personnel into the system. The State Department looks at their licensure, what they're teaching, if their license is accurate. They look at their FTE, so their start and end date, and then what we can get reimbursed based upon all of that information. She looks at the waiver information. So some of our teachers are not fully licensed. So we have to go through the state in order to be approved for a waiver for those students or those teachers. And then she also updates that every year where they're at in their program, because you're on a waiver, then you get a provisional license, and then you have to get fully licensed. So it's quite the process. She does our personnel activity report forms. So any employee that's paid out of two different accounts. So if we have an employee that's paid out of a general ed account or a special ed account, they have to complete the PAR form, which is a long process, and they have to do that on a daily basis and submit it to our department monthly. So school counselors do it, nurses do it for us, so that we can request some of that categorical reimbursement for the time that they're working with special education students. Time and effort documentation is us documenting our staff that are paid out of federal funds. And so we have to document that they work with us half-time or full-time, and that documentation also is pulled during our audits. And then she oversees some of the documents that have to be submitted to the auditor when they come in. And then, like I said, the spreadsheets and report development. She's most recently pulled all of our secondary class lists so that we can start looking at how many special ed students are taught in each classrooms and how we can best service our students. And then we have Dana, who is the one who typically you will hear on the phone whenever you call. She oversees Medicaid. So she does training with our staff. We have a system that we use with Greenbush. We contract with Greenbush for the system that providers log when they work with individual students. And then she trains staff on what information needs to be within that log system and what changes happen with it. She oversees some of our SDAC reporting. So there's emails that go out to service providers or individuals that are on a pull list, and they have to fill those emails out. She oversees our school psych and SPED library and test kits. So as you know, we have several test assessments that we use, protocols, different resources. And so we have library checklists of what's in our library. And so that individuals come in and check things out. She orders all of the protocols and organizes them She updates our Power School special programs because all of our systems talk. So if we have a student move in, she identifies that within our student information system, or if they move out, she has to take them out within that system. She does any of the purchasing or travel arrangements for professional learning. We look at extended school year. So she collects lists and she submits applications for those that are working ESY. She does IEP document processing. So what that looks like, we're kind of in the process of trying to move to an electronic approach, but we still have teachers who want to submit things through interschool mail, which is perfectly fine. So she accepts both, and we either file it or we copy it and upload it to our WebKit system so that we have all of those documentation, required documents. She looks at our initial evaluation data. So what that looks like is another spreadsheet that helps us with our indicator 11 data, which I'll talk about later. And then she does the scanning of the IEP documents. So here's just a quick overview. Again, talking about special ed has a lot of reporting that they do. So in between July and December, we have our, and that should be 619, MIS information system data, but it is, we have that data collection on December 1, and we have that at the end of the year. So those are the two data reporting when we upload to the state, that then they look at all of our data. And that leads back to a lot of the special ed indicators that I've shared with you guys before, as far as our least restrictive environment. We look at student outcomes and things like that. All of that is what we call MIS data. It also relates back to our timely and accurate data, which is part of our state performance plan and annual performance report, which is on the next slide, and I'll talk about that a little bit. Our indicator 11, so that's our timely evaluation. So we have to look at all of our evaluations that we've done over the year, and there's a sample that the state gives us, and we have to look at whether or not those evaluations were completed within the 60-day timeline. We have our money, so our federal funds, that's a 6B application that we do. Part 2 is in July. In the spring, we have part 1. We have indicator 8 survey, which is a family engagement survey. So we have to send a survey out to all of our parents. This year's the first year for all of it, all parents. It used to be another sample. We have indicator 12, which is our early childhood transition. So from Rainbows, when a student is receiving Part C services at Rainbows, they have to go through an evaluation and determined eligible or not. And if they're determined eligible, they have to start services by their 3rd birthday. So that is what that is measuring. Then we have our KSD categorical aid audit, our 6B LEA maintenance of effort and excess costs, which Clint does the majority of that for me. And then we kind of review it together to make sure that's updated. And submit that. And then we have DLM, alternate assessment justification. If you're over your 1% for your alternate assessment, we have to submit a justification. So that comes from our office. And then we have the categorical aid personnel system reporting, where we upload all of our staff. And that happens twice in between July and December, and then happens 3 times in between January and June. And then we have emergency safety interventions reporting, oversight, and report running, and that happens twice a year. So then when we look at January and June, we have deafblind funds. So that's where we get funds for students who qualify for deafblind. It's an application process you go through. And then if it gets approved, you purchase the items, and then you have to request reimbursement. We have our private school participation. So that relates back to the funding piece. I have to submit how many students we have that are receiving services through a private school, how many we're servicing, how many were evaluated, how many were determined eligible, so that then the state knows how much of your federal funding goes to private schools based upon your number you submit. We already talked about the caps. Should be tomorrow that we receive our state performance plan draft or annual performance report. You'll hear that interchange, and that determines your level of determination for your district. So we get the draft in March. We have about a month or 3 weeks to comment on that draft or whether or not there are errors, and then we get the finalized version after that. We have catastrophic aid and non-public reporting. At this particular moment, we do not have any students that qualify for catastrophic aid. And that is if a student costs well over what we would have to educate a student. So typically that's if you're contracting with HeartSpring or you have a student in your district that requires maybe nursing services, that's well over what the cost of the student to educate. And then we have a special teacher vacancy report. It's separate than the personnel office because they also have one that they submit this, but this is particular to special education staff. And then we have the first part of the 6B application. The para in service where you put in the CAP system is separate than the other 5 submissions. We have the emergency safety intervention second report. And then we have indicator 12, which is post-school outcomes. So this is a survey that goes out to parents that had students that graduated the year before. And we chose, I think the last 2 years, we chose to make those individual phone calls to parents. And their questions like, or students, we really like to get a hold of students, but typically we get a hold of the parents and ask the parents, what is your student doing now? And does that relate to what their post-school goals were? And that's the kind of information that we get on that indicator. And I tried to talk fast because I like to talk a lot. So any questions that I could answer with the department?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
As we talked about servicing private schools that have students that would be within our district bounds, is that a legal requirement or a funding requirement?
It's a legal requirement.
That's what I thought. I just saw some eyebrows raised, so I just wanted to double
So-
check that we could say that that's a legal requirement that came down to us that we have to service.
It
this.
is, well, and it's always been, but years ago in Region 6, which is our region, it used to be a gentleman's agreement that each area would service kids that were in our boundaries. So if I had a student from Wichita that was at St. Cecilia, we would service them because they're here in our district. It was never, that's never in the law. There was a gentleman's agreement that changed. I don't know. Clint, we had a discussion. How many years ago was that?
It wasn't that many years
3 or
ago.
4,
Yeah, it's about 4 years ago.
4 years ago. So now if we have students attending private schools in other districts, which we do in Goddard and we do in Wichita, we service them.
We're required.
We don't typically send staff there because basically we service them, and if they want services, they are to get those services in our district.
Okay. Right. And how many kids is that?
Oh goodness, so I believe we have right now maybe 12, well, outside of our district or total private schools.
Outside of our district. In general.
So I think we have 4 and we have 1 being evaluated.
Okay, and then maybe a total of 12. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and they're at 4 different private schools.
They are.
Sure, it'd be nice if we were funded appropriately. That would make it so painful.
Oh, don't be logical.
I know.
Why?
Why are?
Because
they
the
live in our
legislature told us to.
Boundaries.
That is correct. They do live within our boundaries. So those are students whose residence is within our boundaries. And so we have the legal obligation to provide those services.
And similar to even home, like if there's a homeschool student
Correct.
within our boundaries, we are still legally required to do child find with them. So if we suspect that there's someone being homeschooled or a parent comes to us and I'm homeschooling my child, I would like them evaluated, we go through that process.
Yeah, it is our responsibility.
Even if they're not enrolled in our district, yeah.
That is correct.
And these are not decisions based on the local districts. These are federal and state
Yes.
laws.
Correct. Yes.
Do we get funding for those students?
We do not necessarily provide services if they're not enrolled in our district.
Correct.
So
But if
but
they
we still have
request
the
it,
obligation.
If they
if
request
they
it, they
request
came
it,
here.
we need
If
to.
they want services, they enroll.
Then we require them to enroll. And
Okay.
that's the only way we can receive funding.
So we still go through the process evaluating them and determining whether or not they're their student with a disability. But if they want services, then they go through the process of enrolling in the district.
Which is within the rights of the families to determine.
I think I asked you this question last year or 2 years ago
Maybe.
about evaluation of gifted students. I know that I've read, I can't remember the percentage, 1 or 2% of the student population. I don't know, and how many evaluations do we do? Where are we at on that program?
Specifically with gifted, and I could actually pull up my last numbers.
Well, maybe it's just for me locally, but are we making an effort, to
Actually, I think
evaluate
it's on my-
populations at various schools?
You know what, we are, and I would say I'm even more excited that we have FastBridge now because there are some pieces within FastBridge that I think we can do some better data analysis on how they're doing with the screening. So there's different percentiles. So sometimes districts will get stuck on the national percentile. But in our district, if we're going to look at servicing students who we know are advanced, it's better to look at the district percentile because then those are students that we know that are performing really well in our district that we would want to hit that may not hit a percentile nationally that we would consider gifted. So I'm really excited about that piece. I can tell you that I do know that evaluations for gifted have gone up in the past year, which is really exciting. Except then we're stretching our teachers a little bit because we did some rearranging and we're down a gifted teacher this year. And getting to all the buildings is difficult, but I think the FastBridge is helping with us review that data. We do get a lot of parent requests as well, which is really exciting because then you know that those parents are really taking ownership in their students' education and looking at some of those needs for students. But I know that our numbers have been down because I think we were down. I can remember, I think we were down maybe somewhere around 25 from previous years. So it had
25 total, which even if we go by a percentage of 1%, which is not the national average, I've read somewhere 2 to 3% of 5,000. We should have 50 to 100.
So we
gifted
have over
students.
100 students
Okay.
Identified. I know that. I think it's somewhere around 129 right now, but we've been up to 170 before. But we have over 100 students
Okay, and
identified.
you take care of them by pull out or various other means of.
Yeah, so
study.
most of our students, which is kind of going back to our teacher numbers, most of our students receive pull out on a daily basis, which is not typical for gifted programs at the elementary level. Our students at the middle school level receive a gifted lab class if they're enrolled in it, and it's a lot of project-based activities. It's different at the high school because there's a lot different services with IB and advanced
Right.
classes and things like that. But they do have freshmen come in and have an actual class with the gifted teacher to get them prepared and kind of on their path. I will say last week, so something we started this year, which I think we've done in the past, but our elementary numbers were so far down that we decided we would like to bust them together because that interaction piece, they just didn't have a lot in their own building to be able to interact and engage. And so 6 times this year, which I joined them on Friday, they get to go to the Learning Center over their lunch hour and they engage in different activities. So they did a, what is the brain box thing, the breakout boxes?
Mm-hmm.
Very fun. So the kids had loads of fun and one of them asked if they could do it again. And of course, Sally, one of our gifted teachers, said, ask Angie, she oversees the money. And I said, I certainly hope so, because you can tell that really gets them engaged in meeting other people, other kids, and being able to do fun activities.
So putting words in your mouth, it is still a point of emphasis, or you were still considered to do the evaluations. That's what I'm after.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Miss Angie?
I'll point out that Angie is not only an exceptional leader in our district, she's also a leader at the state level, involved in many organizations and does a great job. We're very fortunate to have her.
Thank you. And I also get to, thanks to Jennifer, I also get to participate on the board at the South Y, which has been amazing as well, being part of that and sharing that with some of the different wellness committees. So.
I might add, Debbie is probably the only person in the room other than me that remembers a guy named Tim Yoho, who was had your position in 1995. I asked him the same question. So.
I know his name.
Okay.
Jen, I can just pull it up off of mine. Oh, perfect. If you want to do that.
Thank you.
Works,
ESSER
yes.
3 learning loss. Miss Angie, Miss Jennifer.
Oh, there it is, right there. That makes it easy. Slideshow.
You've been talking a lot.
I'm used to talking over there.
We just wanted to give you an update on our ESSER 3 learning loss committees that we've had over a 3-month time span. So as you can see up here, we had 2 special education meetings and 1 general education meeting where we took numerous participants from district administration. We had building principals, we had staff from both elementary and secondary. We had students on the general ed side come, some secondary students, some middle school and high school students. We had parents from all levels participate, and we had some Board of Education members that were fortunate enough to sit in on these meetings as well. So the purpose of this committee was basically we needed to have these committees to help determine how to spend a percentage of our ESSER 3 funds that need to go straight to learning. And so we needed to collaborate with community members and different stakeholders to get all perspectives as we look at how we're going to spend this money. So we had Clint share in both meetings what ESSER 3 funds were. And so this is his knowledge here. So we just wanted to make sure that you had it as well. And then talking about how we are going to receive we need to take 20% of the ESSER 3 funds and use them for learning and specifically learning loss.
And just as a reminder, there are two pots of money, the original ESSER 3 allocation, but then there is a separate special ed allocation, and both fall into both these regulations as far as requiring a 20% direct addressment of student learning loss.
Which Clint, that was perfect because he had put that there. So you know what the ESSER 3 funds are and the SPED allocation. So what is available, proposed, the revenue that we have. So he explained this to both groups. So groups were well aware of what we were looking at as far as the money that we were looking at spending.
So we're at about 900,000 to what, 950, Clint?
Yeah, 950 to $1 million from the regular ed
We will use for learning loss.
that we have to. Yeah.
Something that we also wanted to let staff know is we've already been using ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 funds to support and benefit students. And these are not the extensive. I mean, we've done more than this, but right now what we have in place, we've used the after school after school academic support program that we have in place. That we're paying those teachers with ESSER 3 funds. We've added, we have the option to add 4 social workers.
I'm happy to say we have an interview set up tomorrow for the high school for a social worker.
And we've also added some class subs so to help with support. CKH Premium, Capturing Kids' Hearts Premium, we've added professional learning support using Mobile Mind. We've updated our curriculum for secondary science and elementary math. And then we added My Path with elementary math for all students.
What is My Path again?
My Path is part of iReady, and it's for elementary students, and it basically puts them on their level and they learn online. And so that's why they call it My Path. It's their path as they go through.
Online remediation.
It is, or enrichment. It goes both ways.
Okay,
Right.
great.
And just as a reminder, many of these programs started under ESSER 2, and that's where the original funding. And as we continue any of those programs, we will put them under the ESSER 3 application.
So this is you guys have, I'm sure in your packet this, so you can read it a little bit more, but there were 2 slides here for recommendations this is from the general education meeting. And so we've got 1 slide under academic and 1 slide under social emotional. I'm not going to read all of these to you, but it basically on the academic side, they encompassed more curriculum, updated digital curriculum, individualized reading curriculum. We did talk about My Path a lot because we initially purchased My Path for 20%. That's what we could afford, 20% of our students. And they ended up giving us 100% this year only. So now we've dangled the bait and the teachers love it and the kids love it and the parents love it and they don't want to lose it and go back to 20%. So I did highlight, My Path was mentioned 4 times because that was their exit ticket in the general education meeting. What do you want to see? Other things, resources to meet needs for tiered supports was mentioned multiple times. Decreasing class sizes across the board was mentioned multiple times. So in the academic area, it was just updated curriculum, more digital formats, less class sizes, more support. And it kind of carried over into the social emotional as well. More counselors, more social workers, more support for students socially and emotionally is what came out of more of the general education meeting. There were better classroom environments for secondary students, adding safe spots. There were all sorts of different things that you can read that they've asked for that came out of the general education part. And I'll turn it over to Angie for the special education suggestions or recommendations.
So we had to.
Oh, I'm sorry, Greg.
This is all well and good, but all these suggestions, recommendations, how are you going to measure or was in place? And maybe I missed it, my listening or whatever, that what we're doing, that we're catching up with learning loss or a majority of the students? Or are we going to do it 2 or 3 years even without ESSER funds? Do you have that information?
We did provide data in both of our meetings. We provided data around academics and social emotional to measure. And so we could use that data and then continue the historical data plus the future data when we put this in place to measure gains and losses.
And Greg, you and I often don't always agree, but completely agree on this one. And that is part of our application process as well. On the ESSER 3 application, we will have to show or state what research-based interventions we're putting in place, what are the things we're going to do, and how will we measure that student learning loss is taken care of.
ESSER 3 is very difficult. I will tell you, there's a lot of challenges with ESSER 3 in meeting this, your question, Greg.
So are we going to use tests? Or are we going to use ACT? I mean, what are we going to use?
Well, we used at the beginning, we've used state assessment tests. We're using FastBridge data. That's the academic piece, the social emotional piece. We're using Gallup Student Poll, Mental Health Association recommendations, office discipline referrals. So we do have testing in place.
Talk about the individuals that came in and presented the MyPath or iReady document in terms of data.
Yeah, we did have individuals come in and talk about how well we're succeeding in iReady using the MyPath and how our district in particular has made massive growth just from fall to winter in math with the use of MyPath. So we have that data as well that they're keeping on their end.
I apologize. You may have said some of that before.
I didn't. So no, I appreciate your question.
Greg,
No, please.
Nelson Site Council, they went over their numbers and they're amazing. Like they've done an amazing job catching students up. They basically swapped their high risk and on path numbers. So the level of students where they need to be doubled and the high risk was cut in half. In math, their reading scores were pretty good too. So that's just what I know of based on what they showed me at the site council meeting. It showed the district too, and it looks like the district is also doing very well. So
I'm not in favor of year-round school, but yet we're talking about a year to 2 years of learning loss. But yet each year we also have on a regular basis, like 2 to 3 months while the students are out for the summer. I don't know if we need to be using some of these tools, some of this to help certain individuals or certain grades or whatever. Just a thought that we can bring these kids back up what they've lost over the last 3 months. I know we have summer school. I know we have, other things, but there is a great deal of learning loss during those 2 to 3 months.
Well, stay tuned for my next presentation. You'll see me in a few minutes.
Say what?
Stay tuned.
Stick around.
I'll be up here in a couple minutes.
Just got enrichment.
You just
My
wait.
bedtime is 9.
No, nope, sorry, you can't sleep through that one.
9 o'clock, I told you.
So quickly through ours, we started with how are we going to identify learning loss with our special ed kids? Because it's not as easy as pulling some of the data in terms of screening. We're working on in FastBridge maybe a way to identify different subgroups so that we can pull those cohort groups to look at. So I'm hoping we get that direction. But we kind of focused more on the individual IEPs and the progress monitoring. So any of those progress reports that have gone out to the families and looking at how those students progressed on their goals within their IEP. We talked about our life skills population. They were on site, but they just didn't have the same integration. So even though we didn't see maybe a lot of academic pieces, we did see that they were not integrated with the general population and having some of those interactions and those social pieces that we'd like to see growth in. We talked about social emotional as well, and we could look at some of those office discipline referrals or suspension data. We also want to look at some of our dropout and graduation pieces, which we'll get our SPP report hopefully tomorrow, and we get some of that data from that. And then we also talked about ideas to help prevent regression. So one of the pieces was the technology and making sure that students have access to technology. I think one thing we talked about maybe is checkout during summer if students needed those technology pieces in order to keep up academically. And then also which is a common theme, having additional special education staff or school psychologist. We know that as caseloads get higher for our special education teachers, that direct instruction, you tend to have higher group numbers that you're providing services to. And it's more difficult to focus on each of those individual education plans. So having additional support staff, school psychologists, to having both ends that they can then pull some of that academic data and analyze some of that data as to whether or not students were growing within each building, as well as the social emotional piece. And then when we met the second time, we really focused a lot on consistent paraeducators. And we know this year it's definitely been a struggle in having those consistent paraeducators in the classrooms working with our teachers. And how can we better prepare those paraeducators with understanding individual student IEPs, having more training than when we get them into the classroom where they have very limited training, because that's a large piece when you're hiring throughout the year, that they don't get a lot of training prior to being placed in those classes, understanding accommodations. And then also talked a little bit about differentiated pay for some of the special education paraeducators and special programs, which is part of negotiations. We'll have that discussion. We talked about the technology, direct interventions that are beyond what is currently being provided. So we talked about some after school support. We also talked about summer. So beyond just extended school year, also summer opportunities. One thing we talked about that we'll do is maybe look at contracting with WSU for speech services. We have seen an increase in referrals for speech language for students that may have not made progress on their goals or didn't start school. We had a lot of drop in our early childhood population numbers. So we have a lot of student needs in that area. And then, of course, we talked about MANT training, not necessarily the technical pieces and the physical components, but really the relationship piece and the conceptual piece and understanding trauma for all staff.
What does MANT stand for?
It's actually the last name of those who created the program.
Yes.
Okay.
MANT.
Tell me more about the program.
It is not an acronym or an initialism, if you know the difference between the two. But luckily, because we do have a lot of acronyms, we talked. What?
Well, a question I think is, what is man training? It is-
Right.
It's basically, it's like physical
Right.
restraint, or
It's
those are my words.
de-escalation.
Yeah.
So it has
De-escalation,
chapters 1 through 3 is based upon relationships. So you learn a lot about how building relationships with those that you work with, because it's not strictly school-based. It's also like mental health facilities and things like that that train in MANT. And then chapter 4 is PBIS. Chapter 5 is trauma. Chapter 6 is based on legal issues that you need to kind of touch base on. And then chapter 7, 8, and 9 are the technical pieces. So you have assisting and supporting, separating, and then the restraint. So there's lots of physical components that go along with that if you have to be in that physical interaction, but most of it builds with the prevention and the de-escalation and intervention before going into.
Which is the part we were talking about for staff specifically,
Right.
was not that technical piece, but that first de-escalation piece was important.
Yeah. Yes, you're welcome. Similar to what was found in the general ed as far as calm down rooms. One thing we do not do is use ASAP for paraeducators. So if a paraeducator is going to be gone, if we had a system where they could go in and say, I'm going to be gone and get substitutes, maybe that would help with some consistency in having subs in there. We talked about Mobile Mind and Infinitec for substitute teachers, and then also parent training. So we'd like to look at some of the parent training that we do. I think that's it.
So our next steps would be to survey the community, because we want to make sure that everybody has a voice. We're also going to survey staff, because obviously all of the staff wasn't able to attend these meetings. And so we want to make sure that they have input as well. That way we are leaving no stone unturned. And then we're going to take those recommendations, compile them with these recommendations, and come back to the Board of Education in March with a little bit more of a truncated list, if you will.
And I just want to point out, in their setup of those in which we were seeking information, they did purposely try to seek multiple demographics from both ethnical, religious backgrounds, affiliations to organizations, local. They really spent time to make sure we had all representation from all subgroups within the community.
When we get the recommendation from this group,
Mhm.
then does it come to you for the funding piece?
It
so we
actually,
know-
the recommendation will come on the funding application. So you'll see right on the application exactly what we're asking for, what those costs are, what the justifications are, what the measurement tools will be. All of that is part of that application.
And that Clint has said we have the money to do this.
Well, if that application isn't passed, we don't have the money to do it. This is to ensure, while the money is allocated, until that is approved by you all, then approved by the state board, and then approved by the Kansas Department of Education, we actually don't have those funds.
And this is probably the most challenging of the ESSER, of all ESSER
Yes.
funds to secure the ESSER 3 funds. And the state will tell you that many applications are rejected because they don't seek input from multiple groups, multiple within your community. So part of this is, that's why we've engaged the people that we have. We're going to engage through a survey. We're going to engage our students, our staff, and
So it's written like a grant application.
yes,
Yes.
very much.
Okay.
Sounds like another job for Louetta Yoder.
Well, as well as you did on the last one, I would agree.
You could present the idea.
Sarcasm. There it is.
Sarcasm.
Ladies, when you bring that back to us, if you would prioritize those for us.
Mhm.
So we kind of know the direction your group wants to go. I mean, we had a huge list here, which is too much. So bring us back, prioritize those so that when we look at them, we can make that decision. When Dr. Schutte looks at them, he can say, that's over our limit on money. These have got to go. So to help us make that final decision on what your people that you're studying really want. Thank you.
Thank you for all the work you've done already. Holy cow.
And Miss Angie, you're going to stick right up here, aren't you, kid?
I am, but I've already actually got all of my stand time on my ring, but I'll.
Yeah. I was going to mention that.
So talking about prioritizing, this is one area that we have started the conversation long before the learning committee, but it is something that has come out of some of the learning committee and supporting social emotional needs. And it really, the conversation started back with counseling group probably about a year ago. So the prepare training, so what it's listed on the agenda is the contract. The prepare training is developed by NASP, so the National Association of School Psychologists. It's the only national curriculum, research-based curriculum that's been developed by educators. And with that curriculum, there's two different workshops. So there's workshop 1, which you have listed. It's a comprehensive school safety planning. So prevention through recovery. So it would incorporate a lot of discussion as how you respond to different crises, how you communicate that crises, memorials, things like that. And I think you have descriptions of both of the workshops within your packet. And then there's workshop, that is one full day. And then there's a second workshop, that's workshop number 2, which is mental health crisis interventions, responding to an acute traumatic stressor in schools, which helps a lot of the mental health professionals address some of the trauma that some of our students may experience, or if staff experience that as well. And so there's 3 different days of training that are incorporated in both of those workshops. We intend for different staff to attend those workshops. And so within that, I think you have each of the 3 contracts. So there has to be 3 presenters from NASP that are trained. And each of the presenters, it's $500 per day for the training fee. So it's $1,500 per trainer. And then we have mileage reimbursement, we have hotel reimbursement, and we have meal reimbursement. So the total cost for the training would be somewhere around $6,400 for all 3 trainers to come in and present to the staff on crisis prevention. And it's really embedded within a multidisciplinary team approach, so that those that are in the situation we have a crisis team matrix, and there's multiple different people that oversee communication, oversee some of the social emotional trauma, oversees, there's different pieces, but all of those individuals would be included in some part of these trainings, whether it's workshop 1 or whether it's workshop 2.
So Angie, how many people from our district will be trained in
So
one of these?
Workshop 2 can only have up to 40 people.
Okay.
And this is more of the direct service provider to trauma. So we're looking at counselors, social workers, school psychs. And then there's a couple of other slots that we may have, like representatives from building administrator and stuff. And then workshop 1 can have up to 100 people because it's more of a broad overview for crisis intervention or planning, which we've talked about having the leadership team be part of that and maybe pulling in some other staff, but focusing really on that leadership team. So directors, supervisors, administrators.
Do we get any materials out of this? They're going to leave textbooks, videos, anything like that?
Yes, yeah. There's,
Can one of our become a pseudo trainer, or do we have to always go back to these guys?
yes, no. So once you go through the training, then you can have the opportunity to be trained as a trainer. And so basically after you attend the training and become certified, if you want to say, then you can go to the training of trainers. So then we could look at bringing in a couple different staff to be able to train staff as they come into our district. But you have to go through the training yourself before you can go to
So what is
trainer of
what is the
trainers.
pool of people at USD 261 that would need this training? You talk about initially 40. What is the big pool?
You could potentially look at training some of the staff members. Like I could see it being some of our special programs, some of the staff at our day school.
Just
that-
just a number. I mean, 70, 85, pick a number.
No, I would probably say 50. Later, as far as workshop number 2, workshop number 1 might be more.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've
There
also
is-
talked about potentially inviting staff from other districts to attend
Mhm.
the one that can hold up to 100.
So would we charge something for that then to offset the cost of having this?
We really haven't got into it that far, Kelly, but I think that's most certainly on the table.
I believe there's somewhere around 10 trainers across the state of Kansas that are trainers that can go into different districts and train.
So if we chose to have someone from our district become a trainer, what's the cost involved in that then if they go like that step beyond?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I remember what the course was, but I'm thinking it's somewhere around 1,500 to 2,000. It's quite expensive
Okay.
to go into that. I mean, which is actually the cost of what it costs to be a man trainer
Mhm.
too.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's probably pretty typical of a trainer program.
Is this required by federal or state? Any of this training?
It is not required. It is something that came from counseling and social work meetings and school psych meetings that they felt like they needed more training in the area of mental health support. And then when we met as a learning loss committee, that was another piece that we talked about, needed training for staff. Sorry.
Sorry. Does ESSER cover this?
No.
So what budget would you take this out of?
Well, we can potentially write this one for sped ESSER. This one for the training, for the initial, it depends on how we write it. Because technically, remember, the ESSER has to address the pandemic. And if we can show that our students are having mental health issues in conjunction to the pandemic, then we can write it in there.
Courtney and I served on the special education ESSER 3 fund committee, and that was really the big running theme, was a lot about, mental health and how do we help these our students better, especially in the special education realm. And it was that we needed to invest in some training for our employees in order to handle.
But to Angie's point, the discussion about the need preceded the
Yes,
pandemic. I mean,
absolutely.
We were seeing those issues prior to.
Yeah.
And one thing, and Clint and I can work on, thank you. Clint and I can work on numbers, but we also did get ARP funds.
That's right.
From the,
And those directly apply.
and those, yes, so those do not have to be spent on learning loss.
Correct.
And ARP funds means, sorry.
Gosh. What's the acronym?
America Recovery Plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Fed money, just.
Yeah.
Fed
It's
money.
all part of the
AARP.
CARES, ARP. I mean, it was all of those. I mean, we even received some food service, additional funding for cost of food because of the pandemic.
Gotcha.
It all came through all those.
So they follow the same guidelines as our federal funds, which
Right.
does include professional learning.
Correct.
Thank you.
I hate to open a can of worms, Mr. Clegg. I'll do it anyway. If we identified or, we're talking about children and emotional social behavior, what about staff?
Yes,
We do have an ongoing program process or whatever.
we have had an employee assistance program for quite some time.
I know. Okay.
But yes, we do know that we have staff that are dealing with significant issues right now.
So it's an ongoing, I know we've had the program in the past, but this is another wedge or another thing to be on the lookout for.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And we have had several conversations whenever we do have a crisis arise as to how we need to approach that. And this would help us, I think, shore up some of the processes of how we move forward.
It becomes very evident when you go through a crisis and you reflect afterwards where the training is necessary. And I will tell you, unfortunately, we've had several this year that we've had to work through, and this will be excellent training for our leadership team. It will be very good training.
One of the unique aspects about a school person or adult is that they may be impacted directly by the issue, but they're also being called upon to provide service to others. So they're in a dual role. We, of course, focus on our kids first, but Greg, you're exactly right. We have adults who feel those traumas as well.
One more question. I see the dates for training are in June. A lot of staff will not be working. Will we also have to pay them a salary to show up for the class?
All of the staff that are attending in June have extended contracts days
Okay.
that they've already been told anticipated dates to be able to have those extended contract days. So no, they do not have to be paid.
Okay.
Anything else? Miss Angie, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Miss Jennifer, you're up, kid.
All right. Oh, wait. Thank you. Okay, we talked a couple months ago about the possibility for me to explore the summer exploration and enrichment program that we would like to offer in June for our kindergarten through fifth grade students. So I'd like to share with you some of what we've come up with. So we put out a proposal for staff, and what we talked about, I'll just start with logistical information. We would like to offer a summer exploration and enrichment program, which would be beyond our regular summer school, our K-2 intervention, and our ESY for kindergarten through fifth grade students during the month of June. So that will be 4 weeks. And we would do it 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, because district offices are not, or no offices are open on Fridays during summer months. And then the week of June 21st would be a shortened week. It would just be 3 days because we celebrate Juneteenth. So it would be about 15 days during the summer. It would be at Nelson Elementary School. Transportation will be provided. We would start, the students would arrive at 8 o'clock so they could eat breakfast. And Nelson is a site that already has food provided, so this will be easy enough. Then they would report to their class at 8:30, and they would have class for the 3 hours till 11:30, and then we would take them back to the cafeteria where they could eat lunch before they would leave at noon. So we've got transportation covered, we have breakfast and lunch, we have the location, and we have several teachers that are excited to offer some classes. So we wanted this to be something above and beyond what they might be able to teach in the classroom. So not only would students be excited to come and learn, but the teachers are excited to come and teach. So here's some opportunities that are different choices that the teachers have proposed to teach during the summer. Now, these classes aren't chosen yet. These are just what is available. So for example, let's write a book, exploring science, community helpers. When I have and/or, it's because that teacher submitted 4 different classes. So one teacher really got into STEM, and they have STEM for gears and towers and bridges and roller coasters. So we asked teachers, would you be willing, we wanted to make it really, really flexible in the summer. So would you be willing to teach 1 week, 2 weeks, all 4 weeks? Would you be willing to teach, you know, one group or one class for all 4 weeks, or would you like to switch it up? So we've got all of that information from teachers. What we would like to do from here, with your permission, oh, well, I should mention costs. Sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained right now. But what will it cost? This is worst case scenario. Right now, we have 18 staff members that have submitted proposals. If we were to accept every single class and every single staff member taught all 15 days, plus we give them a day of plan, so it's 16 days total, At $24 per hour, the negotiated agreement actually says 12 per half hour. I rounded up. That would be about $27,000. And then Clint added how much the supplies would be and how much transportation would be. So total max amount, and I can guarantee you right now that it wouldn't be this much with teachers because not all teachers signed up to teach all 4 weeks. The total would be $44,728. And we'd like to use ESSER funds for
Yeah,
this.
and this would be a great example of ESSER 3 application to address student learning loss during the summer months. These are some of the things even the state have advocated would fit under that perfectly.
I'll throw out to you a couple of numbers. One, if you were to add 1 day of learning to our calendar, so that would cost the district about $275,000 to add 1 day for K-12. So when you look at giving kids 15 days of learning for $44,000, it's really a pretty darn good deal, bang for your buck. And this is where you truly impact learning, in my opinion, is summer months when kids are typically not engaged in learning. You give them an additional 15 days of learning. That in this case will be enrichment for kids who want to take some stuff maybe they couldn't do during the normal school year.
Class size?
We would like the maximum class size to be 15.
Minimum?
Minimum, we're talking about 10 to 12 to make a class.
We're talking K through 5?
K through 5. Current kindergarten students through current 5th grade students. So if you're a 5th grader going into 6th grade, you can still participate. We would like, this is going to be a test run. I think it's going to be super successful. And then next year, we'd like to extend it to K-12.
If you want Paxton, be my guest.
We will take Paxton all day long, just so you can write more of Paxton Says. So I kind of got ahead of myself here. The next steps with your approval, what we'd like to do is survey the parents and talk about the different classes that we'd like to offer. Do you like STEM classes? Do you like music classes? Do you like art classes? And gain the interest. And then from there, it's going to be kind of a reserve your spot because it'll be free for students, but we're going to have class limitations. So we'll determine from there what classes we can make and what classes we might need more of. And then we'll take those and talk to transportation and we'll talk to food service and we'll get the classrooms ready at Nelson. We'll go walk the school and see where that best bet would be. And then we'll make the classes and schedules from there, kind of a menu form, continuing to talk to parents and saying, all right, so this is where your child would be scheduled. Some classes will not run for 3 hours. So, I mean, we don't think a kindergartner could sit for 3 hours. So some classes will just be an hour at a time or maybe an hour and a half so we can get that transition. And some teachers don't want to teach for those 3 hours. They want to just teach for an hour. So we want to make it really flexible and really fun for all the kids and make it super successful this summer.
So transportation is based on the kids that already currently get transportation,
Correct. Transportation has to be students that are eligible for transportation currently.
and they would have to stay the entire time, I assume.
Yes, they would
receive-
need to
yeah.
stay for the entire time.
For transportation.
So we would provide them with the schedule. These are the classes that you would be taking. If they would like to leave early, their parents would have to come pick them up.
Correct.
So the kids at Rex that don't ride a bus now would not be eligible for this?
Well, they would be because they're out of the Nelson
Okay,
boundary.
well, the way you said it, if
Yeah.
you weren't riding a bus now, you couldn't ride. So
Yeah, we're holding it at Nelson, so it's students at Nelson
you
boundary.
got to follow the state guidelines on it.
That is correct.
Thank you.
I
So
assume this is a bare bones staff. I mean, we're not going to have playground attendants and paras and all that.
There won't be recesses that day.
Okay, so
No.
it'll be just basically a teacher and some administrator and so it's a
And
bare
15
bones teaching environment.
Correct.
You said you had 18 members, 18 staff members.
We have 18 staff members that have submitted proposals
Okay.
here.
Okay, I misread that.
Mhm.
Okay, so there may or may not be 18 certified teachers then.
Correct.
Okay.
It just depends on who's teaching that week.
The curriculum.
And if necessary, Greg, we would potentially need to have a nurse there.
Yes.
You would have to have some kind of administrator to oversee the program. You're going to have custodial staff, but they'll already be there.
That's what I'm saying. It is a school.
Yes.
So we
It
will
is.
need some of these peripheral.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
And But you're mainly concerned with teaching.
Right now, we're concerned with making sure that we can make a class. We're not concerned with administration. Learning services will cover that this summer. And we're already on contract, so that's not a price point.
We will have a nurse there as well. And then any students that are IEP eligible that require services will have services.
They're necessary costs, but they're still costs. You still have to fill the position. Get somebody volunteer to come in and do this. So
Correct.
there's still issues to be. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So we are using ESSER, we are hoping to use ESSER 3 funds to do this.
That is correct.
So how fast does that process work for us to be able to submit this out to know whether or not we're going to get approved or denied the use of those funds?
That's
You hate to
that.
get all the way down the road
Yeah.
with this and then find out, oh shoot, we're not going to be able to cover that with ESSER 3. We got denied for some reason.
And you're absolutely correct. And I was at a meeting on Friday with several other business officials talking about theirs, and the state is behind it. It depends on how detailed our application, but we may not find out until May, even if we submit our application in March, which, by the way, that's one that still has to come to you all for approval. And we're hoping we can get approval in one setting, not 2 months. But again, that's again up to you all. So we may not find it until May, whether or not it is approved for that funding. And if not, we will then be on the hook for holding it if we hold the course and paying those funds.
Right, because at that point, then we're too far down the road to back out of it and
That's
not
correct.
offer it because
That's correct.
people are already counting on it at that
That's
point.
correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yep, we would not do that to our patrons.
Right.
So Jennifer, this, when you say mad scientist training,
Mhm.
does that one student do that same training for those 3 hours a day for 4 weeks?
I don't know mad scientist right off the top of my
Just
head, but
pick one.
well, no, I'm just saying that when we offered the proposal, we said, what would you like to propose? What's the title of the class? What's the purpose of the class? What supports do you need? And how long do you think it'll take the students to successfully complete the requirements of the course? And so then we gave them anywhere from 4 to 12 hours. If it was a 4-hour, then we know it's going to be an hour each day for a week. If it was 12 hours, we knew it was going to be a 3-hour class each day for the week.
So each one of these lasts 1 week. So a child could possibly take 4 different classes in.
A child could take up to 3. Because the learning time is 3 hours because we have a half hour for breakfast and a half hour for lunch. So they could take up to 3 classes a week. They could get up to 12 classes this summer.
Okay, that's where I was headed.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. That's a lot.
It is a lot, but it's fun. It's not graded. And it's something that they're excited about. I mean, these are areas.
And some families have indicated they would like a week, and that would allow those students to participate for a week.
So the students can pick 1
Yes.
week.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they're not locked into the 4 weeks, just like our teachers aren't locked into the 4 weeks.
So if they want to go to the 3rd week, which is only 3 days, they
That's
could go.
some-
to-
They can absolutely do that.
Well, and honestly, this is the kind of thing, this has been going on quite a bit at WSU Tech
Mhm.
for engineering camps and art camps and all of those
Yeah.
kinds of things. So it's just bringing some of that availability in-house. So yeah. Actually, a couple of these sounds like something I'd like to do.
Yeah.
And the key is at no cost.
All right.
This will, a child can participate in this from the time they get up till when they're done. They'll have breakfast, lunch, participate in summer learning, be engaged with a teacher who has, the ability to build relationships and be impacted for 15 days in the summer at no cost to that family. That's, to me, is what it's all about.
My only concern, well, I have a couple of tiny concerns.
Mhm.
I think it's a great idea. Here's the concern. June is a time when a lot of people are going to go, we're going to grandma's for a week or whatever kind of thing. So if I've got a kid and I want to do supplementals on art for my child, and that's not available during that week, is that going to be an issue? Are they going to be able to see that schedule before they say, yeah, we're in on this? Or is that being built on the
They'll
back
be
end?
able to see the schedule.
Okay, so you're
So
building the
what we
schedule.
will do is after we build the class and commit to the class, we'll send it back out to parents and say, based off of your choices, this is the menu of options we can offer you each week for your child, and then get that secured.
Make sure that the kid,
Mhm.
gotcha. The other thing I hope, and I think you're right, I think this is something people are gonna just think is fabulous. When we don't have the ESSER 3 funds, is there a way that we can now re-engineer this so there's a nominal fee and still do it again in years beyond this? Is that something that's possible?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have good examples of that with the Spark program.
I do think the goal is to grow it.
Right.
So we can continue and offer this.
Our goal is to offer this K-12. And whether we have ESSER funds or not, have this available for summer learning for our
So it
kids.
basically becomes a summer enrichment.
Yes,
Mhm.
that is our goal.
Great. Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I might throw out there, I heard this week that WSU Tech is wanting to do a robotics camp this summer here. So
I hope they partner with our high school robotics group.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
That would be very nice.
I think that's in the works. Sweet. All right. Financial audit.
Well,
Dr.
I
Schuster.
don't have an awful lot to present on this. This is the contract. If you guys remember correctly, when our auditor presented in March, we talked about the renewal of their contract, because remember, they work directly for you to evaluate the financial statements that we develop every year. And so this is their engagement letter. Their offer, of course, for a 3-year agreement going forward, something we had in the past. They're keeping their fee flat, so it's the exact same fee we had this year. Moving forward, there would be a slight increase for the subsequent years.
Is there any other change from what we always do?
No, it still meets all of the KMAC and cash basis law, because part of the board's organization in July, we usually waive the gap requirements.
Any questions for Dr. Schutte?
Just it goes up 4%?
It does in subsequent years.
So it's not, and is it every subsequent year, 4%?
Yes, 4%. Yeah, and it's not unusual. I will tell you, you do have one of the best audit firms around with Allen Gibbs and Hewlett, and they like our business, so that's why they offered a flat rate going forward. They want to keep us. We fit a timeline perfect for them, and I have to leave it up to you on whether or not you're pleased with their work. So I know they put me through the ringer.
Then we're pleased.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, thank you.
Last item under reports is healthy relationships. And this is a form that says on the top of it, Kansas Health Education Standards. That was at your desk when you got here tonight, that packet.
Absolutely. We'd like to present on, first, I'm gonna turn it over to Beth Schutte, because she's the one that discovered this grant and this opportunity for our kids. So
I'd like to take credit, but the Kansas Learning Center for Health have reached out to me, and they had a grant opportunity for this class, will be for freshmen. It's a healthy relationship class. They offer a $2,000 grant to cover that. An additional $1,200 fee. I have enough in my budget to cover the difference, so we'll be able to offer that to all freshmen. And what's great about this course, it really talks about healthy relationships for everybody. So it's relationships with your family, relationships with other students, teachers, significant others, and it's really non-specific, so it's inclusive for everybody. It goes into, how to recognize if you're in a healthy relationship, what to do if you're not in one, how can you get help, what to do if you see that your friend is in a healthy relationship. It touches on internet safety, sexting, sending pictures, all of that. It just really is a wonderful course for freshmen that are going up to the high school, are going to be exposed to so many more things than they were in middle school. So we just want to prepare them for that.
this is like a workshop. It's not an actual course that they would
Correct.
take. It's a 50-minute workshop that we're going to pretty much have them rotate through, like groups of 25 students rotate through for 2 days straight. So
Correct.
they'll
Yeah,
come in
right.
and present to our freshmen, probably in the auditorium, or and then they'll just sit for the 50 minutes. So what you have in front of you are the Kansas Health Standards. And I pulled the 9th through 12th grade standards, and they just, why it says 12 is because they always go to, this is where we want the kids at the end of 12th grade. And I've kind of highlighted and put what standards each area hits off of their list of objectives. So you can see that. We have a health class already. All 9th grade students are required to take a semester of PE and a semester of health. So we thought this fit beautifully as kind of a supplemental to the health class that they're already taking.
And additionally, they did say, if we notice that there's some problems going on at our district, like really we're noticing a lot of this going on, they can really cater that to whatever's going on in our community. So they can definitely alter that to make it really site specific for us, which is great. I've also talked with Mr. Morford, and they really suggest that we have either a counselor or health staff also attend this because it can bring up feelings for students that maybe realize, hey, look, I am not in a good relationship. I don't know what to do, or bring up old feelings. So we would have counselors and the health staff available there as support for them as well.
So are those positions going to be accessible to the students after these 2 days? In other words,
Yes, I mean,
are they
that's
going to know that they have someplace that they can go for help
Exactly.
if they're in those positions?
exactly.
So this is bringing in outside people to facilitate this.
Correct. And this is a Candace Learning Center for Health out of Halsted. This is the group that we send our fifth graders to for puberty teaching every year. Heston is currently using them for all their freshmen yearly, and they say it's a wonderful program and have just great response from it.
So we've seen the program, other than just the outline, we've seen.
I have not personally seen the program, no.
Has anybody reviewed?
I spoke with the nurse in Heston who goes through it every year, and she had nothing but praise for it. So,
we had a peer review or whatever.
yes, yeah, I got really good feedback from her. They liked it so much that it is a yearly annual event for them.
Is it possible to send someone to?
I'm sure they would be
somewhere
up for
to
that.
see the
Sure,
program?
I can certainly ask. I don't see where that wouldn't be a problem. I will say we are on kind of a time crunch to use this grant money. I don't know if it'll be available next year. So I don't know if I could get somebody there before the end of the year. It would depend on where they have their trainings going on.
So what's your time frame on this that you're wanting to?
Well, really, the Kansas Learning Center for Health, they fill up. So really I would be thinking looking in April, most likely. Maybe into May. I'm really not sure. I'll have to work with Mr. Morford to see where our schedules can coordinate.
Do you want to continue this as a spring event or?
I would love it as a fall event, actually, in the very beginning of the year. It's something that I've really had my eye on, and when the grant money came up, and I was just like jumped on it to see if we could do it. I'd like to try to find grant money moving forward. I think it would be a wonderful course for all the freshmen coming in, because they are going to face a lot of new relationship issues that they probably haven't faced before. So I think this would be a really great time to offer it.
One thing to note is everything in the top portion is a state standard that we are required to teach. And the bottom half is what the program offers to meet that standard. So our kids are going to get access to this information regardless, because it is a standard that we hit. This is just bringing an outside person in to provide that and facilitate that process and that learning for our students.
Question I have, because you are on a tight time frame,
Mhm.
rather than this being a first read, do you need us to go ahead and say, yes, we would like you to apply for the grant? Would that be helpful? Or
I mean, the grant is ours, so it's ours if we want it.
ours if we want it? Okay.
It's ours if we want it. I just need to schedule. That's all I have to
Thank-
do, is really to schedule the time for them to come. But the
Doc,
money is ours if we want it.
Typically, we don't bring curriculum items to the board like this, but because of the times we're in, we want to be completely transparent.
Sure.
And we want to make sure parents understand what we're doing. We would have an opt-out if that, just like they have with any curriculum, if somebody doesn't want their child to participate, just like they do with any curriculum that we have, they would have that option. But quite honestly, in probably pre-COVID, this probably wouldn't have been brought to the board, but right now it's more of an informational, so you know as a board what it is that we're wanting to do and teach the standards that we're required by state to teach. So
Well,
So they do have an opt-out option.
Yeah, the idea would be that we would notify parents that this is coming, and if they didn't want to, they could surely say, no, I don't want my student to attend, and we would let them opt out. So I don't think that would be a problem whatsoever.
So it's not a semester-long class.
No, it's an hour that they get together with the
I
facilitators.
might have missed that also.
Yeah, so it's an hour they get together with the facilitators. They do it in about groups of 25 to make it very interactive, to allow them to ask questions. I know that Heston has had just great response with it, so I'm really confident that we would benefit from it. The grant money is amazing, which is really, really nice to make this more of an option for us this year.
my feeling was, and my apologies, what I heard was this is a grant that possibly we would have to go for, but if it's something that we can have,
Yes,
I think maybe giving that month between now and February. So if we have parents who have a concern and want to reach out to
Sure.
us or to the nursing staff, I'd rather just wait if we can, if that's not going to be a problem for you with this grant.
To wait, and how long are you?
Just wait until February for the final vote. Is that going to be a
Thought
problem?
we wait till March.
This is just.
It is
informational.
Yeah, I'm like,
This is a-
I'm so confused. I'm thinking
This
next
is
year.
what happens when you retire. You have no idea.
No, I
what
don't think,
time
I
it
think
is.
we can schedule it further out and then take plenty of time to let parents
This
know
is
what's
not,
coming.
this
Not
isn't
a
an
vote.
action item. This is just.
This is a
report.
first, since it's a
well,
first.
it's an
not even a first
information, so
reading.
that you're aware of it.
It's 10 minutes till I go home.
Heavens, I am so sorry.
It's not a
That's
first
the point
reading, Susan. It's just, this is just as an
Information. Just
FYI
what
to
happened.
us. Yeah, there's no first reading, there's no vote.
I'm gonna sit here.
It's
quietly. I'm sorry, Deb.
It's an awesome opportunity that came
I'm
up.
a
It's
waste
something
of
that I've
space.
really wanted for campus for a really long time. And when they called me with the grant opportunity, I thought,
Yeah.
and Mr. Morph was awesome. He's like, yeah, I want to get on it right away. Jen was great. So I think we just wanted to make you aware of it. I think we would definitely give parents a chance to opt out. If you look at the kind of guidance, there's not really anything super controversial on there. I think other than maybe talking about internet issues, but other than that, it's really all about what's a safe relationship.
I love the internet issues. I'm
And that's
hearing all
huge. I mean,
kinds
that's
of
huge.
craziness. Yeah.
And quite honestly, any kid who has a cell phone is dealing with this.
Yeah,
That's the reality of it.
And we don't know, our parents having that conversation with their ninth grader, hey, this is what you need to be aware of. Once you put it out there, it's out there forever. And what can happen if you put things out there? I don't know if those conversations are necessarily happening. So we provide that opportunity.
One, just those conversations around gossiping and anger and
It's all
that kind
there.
of stuff is all very important for those kids to understand how to deal with some
And
of that
having the
stuff.
counselor and the health staff involved for hey, if you have these issues, these are your safe people to go to. They would be involved as well. So I think it's provides information and then provides the support on the back end.
And what we will do is, I think the wise play will be, we will evaluate it, bring it back to the board and give you guys an update. This is what we observed, have Beth, Jen, Mr. Morford, classroom teacher, if we need to bring back, this is what we did and this is how it went. And these are some things we would recommend doing moving forward.
And then I can tell you, in Heston, they haven't had a single parent ever opt out. So that's good feedback.
Having been a former health teacher, having outside people that are experts in the field come in and support that is extremely important. And that's kind of why I really supported this when I heard about it immediately.
I think I got an email back in an hour, yeah.
It just
Amazing.
sends another, like hearing it from an uncle as opposed to hearing it from your dad, that advice sounds good then. So I really think this is a good thing, and we have to organize it because we have health both in the fall and the spring. And but we'll coordinate it and get as many as possible. But knowing also with health, there are opt-out options on different things, and we're well aware.
And then hopefully introducing in the fall, I'll search for that grant money again, but it would be nice if, I know it's kind of putting pressure on Mr. Morford, hey, you want to shove this into your curriculum, but I think if we go into next year with a plan, it won't be quite as stressful to try to get it in.
Any further questions? Thank you, ladies. I'm going to declare that we have a little intermission till straight up 9 o'clock. How about that?
Greg's bedtime.
I can't believe, I thought it was January, not February. What a waste of space I am. Okay.
You took this. Me?
Yeah, about.
I am sorry.
I know.
What I always laughed at was his first grade of mine, and he was younger than I was, so it's like, mine isn't even died. Just you're full of glitter. Glittery. From working out. This is why I like to say that there's no such good thing. There's no good pain. See, that's not good pain.
This isn't good pain, but my legs.
No.
That's good
No,
pain.
it's not.
My arms, that's good
No,
pain.
there's not.
My chest.
No.
That's good pain.
No such thing. You're wrong. On so many. All right. Are you all right?
Yes, I'm exhausted.
You were like giving the blink blink.
This is like my one and only night off in the last
no.
like 14 days, and then I go into like another 12-day
Poor
stretch.
thing.
So I'm like, oh,
You want me to, you want me to start carrying some Monster in my bag
too.
or what is it, 5-hour energy?
My girl. Goodness, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
You should see the amount of snacks I have in my bag.
Oh, yeah.
You would be impressed. I have peanut butter crackers.
Trying to avoid stacks.
I have Slim Jim. I have my protein, my little protein things.
Okay, this is this side of the
Yeah.
bed. Hi, guys, how are you?
I thought I got moved over there, but I guess
Oh,
not.
I guess not.
Probably just easier since he moved. And he moved, it's just plug in, plug and play.
Whatever. It's nice. Yeah, I was like, I never know what clothes I'm gonna fit in from day to day. It's interesting.
Are you still working out with Frank?
Huh?
Are you still working out with Frank?
I am, not as much.
Did I tell you I hired him for Hadley?
Did you?
She went to. And she said, yeah, I'm going back. And I said, yes, you are. I took her straight. Frank.
She's, here's my friend. She's a little tiny sport, this is the diver,
Uh-huh.
who's about to graduate college. I've seen her just, because she lifts with her legs, and my son-in-law's just a beast. There's this little squirt, she's in there just doing. Like, way to go, kid. Yeah, Hadley, we said, have a conversation.
Yeah. Go good. Yeah. Swim wish, swim tour wish was good.
Just want to get it ready.
I thought the number was higher. I thought on the check. It was 26.
No,
Wait.
we have all of these.
Is that the whole total though for
What's
like
the
all of
envelope?
them?
What they had so far.
Oh,
Yeah.
because I was gonna say, I think somebody.
That's what I did
Kelly
for
said
them, and they
somebody's
kept
doing
it.
it this week, another school.
Oh. I actually just let
Salon.
Haysville
Yes,
was doing,
right.
we're trying to hit that 300,000 this
That's correct.
year, so. That's really awesome.
Go back to my side, don't I?
We got 4 minutes-ish. 3
minutes.
3 minutes.
The problem is I'm not taking up on the break that I have right now, and then soon I'll be like, I
Yeah.
gotta take a break.
Yep.
I
Me
am-
too.
Giving you that opportunity.
I am my son.
I'm telling you right now, we're gonna have a break about 9 o'clock every week, okay, every meeting, okay?
We're not gonna have meetings till 9 o'clock every meeting, my friends.
I hope not.
I know, precisely my point.
You're fine.
I knew tonight was gonna be long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Paxton's gonna go to summer in Richmond, huh? Does he know this yet?
Well, he doesn't know. He may be finding out right now listening. Wait, what?
You always have to do your what did Paxton say? Because I get so excited when I see
Whoever's
them.
gonna take over that can do it for the summer.
Oh, they're so funny. That kid.
Yeah, when I thought Sinead was gonna die, I was like, see, I don't make it up. You're here, you got to hear it.
He's a funny kid.
He is a fun kid. He brings a lot of laughter and aggravation to my life,
Hey, I raised Sam. Guess what's coming?
right? I'm gonna be attending the Looney Bin.
You will.
Christmas Eve or whatever.
Doing stand up when you don't even know what he's up to.
Some of it.
I don't know if I can deal with it.
I don't
Tell
know.
Jokes about you guys.
It does make family get-togethers very interesting. I'll say that.
Does he do jokes about you guys?
The funniest one ever, and I hate to even admit this out loud because it's, no, we've got 22, 24 of us around the table. You see the big table at my house, right?
Boarding at 5:30.
Oh. And he starts cutting up
Yeah.
at the other end of the table with his siblings to the point where
6:05.
things were spitting. in my mouth.
Because I'm just laughing so hard.
I'm at this end
I've
of the
seriously
table with my parents going, what is
considered
happening down there?
You don't want to know. You did.
Unfortunately, I found out. That's what happens when you have a comedian in the family. It's always a case of, can I make somebody spit milk or spit their drink?
Oh, good. What are you flying? American
No, United.
United?
United Puddle Hopkins. 2 seats on one side, 1 seat on the other.
How much time we got left?
Oh.
Was had this dream when I get on board. Fatty's here.
I gotta go now.
Paul's here.
Never mind.
Where's your connecting?
That ship has sailed.
It's going out.
I want to hear that from you in San Diego.
And they're going Atlanta both ways.
Make you carry a little bucket.
My flight's cheaper.
I'm going to call the meeting back to order. Moving on to action item number 6.1, parents, teachers, staff, and student handbook.
I will make a motion to accept changes within that handbook. I didn't have any, is that all we're looking for here? Because I didn't see any changes when we looked it over. Did anybody else have any?
Second. I got a motion by Ms. Bain, second by Mr. Bennett to approve the parents, teachers, staff, and student handbook as presented. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. 6.2, Tri-City Day School Staff and Student Handbook.
Why no hoodies?
What?
Why no hoodies?
There has been a change to that line in there too. I will, did you put out the change? You don't know anything about it?
The one page. Get the package.
It's okay. Go ahead.
You want to go over that? That change?
Well,
Before
it
we
was,
start this discussion.
yeah, Mr. Gibson gave me a call Friday. I don't know what's in your packet compared to what I sent, because I sent you the updated sheet.
Right.
And previous to that, the wording was a little obscure, so I changed it to be more specific. It kind of encompasses two things. Coats and jackets with metal zippers have been known to hurt staff significantly when they're, and that was the reasoning for that. And then the hoodies was simply also a potential restraint issue and safety when you're trying to restrain a kid and getting some pulled over. So we provide sweatshirts that have been cut, and if a student's cold, then they can put those on, and it's significantly less of a safety issue.
Okay. Thank you very much.
The original change said hoodies are outer clothing, which jeans have metal zippers in them, and that was where I questioned Mr. Berryman on that, and he's made the correction, and the new correction is hoodies are any type of coat or jacket with a metal zipper.
Right.
That's what it says now.
Okay.
That's what mine said.
Okay.
You got that correction? Okay.
How come we have a 2021 and 22, 22 and a 23 TCDS handbooks?
So you could see the
Compare.
difference, what was changed.
You can compare.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay, I noticed that your term was expired on the last year, 12/31 of 21. So, I mean, minor things like that. So, and even on our website, he still shows his terms expired on May.
Do I?
So I went back to look, see.
Not even supposed to be here today.
Yeah.
Nice try.
Any other questions for Mr. Berryman?
I'll
You're
make
gonna
the motion to approve with
The corrections.
the correction that you have. I'm assuming that was in. didn't see
It was in an additional page. It
Additional correction.
was on page 21.
Okay, I may have missed that one, but as long as it's in there.
You all got that.
As Tom stated with that correction. How's that?
Second. You have it next time.
Got a motion by Dr. Norton, a second by Mr. Bennett to approve the Tri-Cities Day School Staff and Student Handbook as corrected. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Now we've got summer exploration and enrichment again for an action item.
we're asking for approval to move forward.
Oh, okay.
Last month, we brought you the first presentation overview of the program. Jen said she would bring back the classes after we made the classes. That's what we're sharing tonight, and our goal is to move forward with this. Start the process that Jen was talking about, advertising, include it in our ESSER application as a strategy for addressing learning loss.
I'll make the motion to move forward with summer exploration and enrichment.
I will second that.
Got a motion by Dr. Norton, a second by Ms. Bain to approve the summer exploration and enrichment program.
So does that mean it'll come again for final approval after we've been approved by ESSER and so on and so forth?
You will give us approval, Greg, on the ESSER application. What this is doing is giving us the approval to go forward with the summer program. And then Clint will bring to you in March the first read for the ESSER 3 application, which this will be one of the expenditures that we will utilize out of ESSER 3 is summer learning. So you're giving us the authority to go ahead and get this out to parents, advertise it, and move forward with it. And what we've committed to this year is having summer learning and exploration.
We're going to do it, but what's in doubt is how we're going to pay for it.
Yes.
So if the ESSER was denied, do we have a backup plan for how to pay for it?
Yes, we have some title funds that we could use.
That's fine.
I'd rather not. I'm hoping for it.
I would rather not also,
But yes,
But
we
we
do.
have backup.
We do have a backup.
This is
just
one
want to
of
know the plan B.
Yes.
And this is one of the state's most commonly referred to now, whether it's summer enrichment or remediation, whatever, but summer learning is one of the strategies the state highly recommends school districts consider for using ESSER 3 funds.
So what you're saying is Jennifer needed one more slide for all her questions. That's all I'm saying. I mean,
I'll add as many slides as you want. Just
I didn't
vote yes.
understand, and you needed to talk. Okay. I didn't understand, and that's why I keep asking questions. Okay,
Yeah, I appreciate it.
okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 6.4 Grand Lane gas line.
This is, I know it's a little bit of a convoluted request because the property is our property. Not too long ago, however, we did a refinancing of some bonds and we included the cost of the Grand Lane lease at that time, which was technically through Security Bank out of Kansas City. So while we don't hold the title because we still owe on those bonds, we did have to check with Security Bank out of Kansas City and whether or not they would approve this. And this is what they've said, because technically they hold the title while we are still indebted for that property. They said they will follow whatever the school board decides to do. If you choose to grant the easement or the access to replace for Kansas Gas Services, and they are just upgrading their gas lines, what it is. If you choose to do that, Kansas Gas Service will give us $2,000. That'll go towards our principal debt. They don't need it. And then Security Bank will approve it if you do. If you don't, they will not.
They're going to clean up the area as well when they're done, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And if you go down there and look down that little creek there, it would cost us about 10 times that much to clean up the mess that's there. If they're going to clean up, I'm all for it.
And the majority of the easement is actually in the creek. So,
And we have had our attorney vet this.
correct.
Our attorney did vet the document and advised us that we were good to move forward with it.
That is correct.
So basically what this is doing is we're agreeing to Kansas Gas Service to do the work, and they're going to clean up and they're going to fix things, and then they're going to pay us $2,000 for doing all that for us.
That is correct.
We need more of these.
And that 2,000 will go directly towards our debt on that property.
But by giving them an easement, that means that if we ever wanted to put something in ourselves, bury electrical cable or whatever, we're losing that.
We would still have access to our own easement. We can still run through our own easements as well. We would have to pay the fees for running it. David could probably help me with this. When we looked at running the fiber optic cable, that we ran into this issue. So.
And that would also go on the east side of the building. I guess what I'm saying is that once we give them an easement or they use eminent domain, then we have to ask permission to to pave, to do anything back there.
Yeah.
Is that going to be a long-range problem?
No, not at all. Sorry, we could not build within that easement. It's too close to the creek. I was actually more worried about part of our concrete falling off into it. So
Are they putting a large enough pipe in there just for our buildings, or is it for the rest of the residential area there?
yeah, it is serving other customers as well. They're replacing one of their main.
Okay,
lines.
so they have a monetary reason for putting it in there.
That's correct. And it's an old line.
Well, more than anything else, I just went through it, personal experience. The KCC has determined that they're going to replace literally every house.
That's
And-
correct.
And they say it's free, but the KCC, we end up paying for it in our bills, 200 foot. Well, this is more than 200 foot. What we're actually doing is helping them get closer to the residential area.
That is correct.
So there's an ulterior motive, which, okay, I just wanted to be open and transparent because I just got to go, done going through this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any further questions? What's the board's wish?
I move that we approve the right of way as presented. Is that what we need to say?
Motion by Dr. Norton and a second by Ms. Ramsayer. Did I get closer that time?
That's okay.
No, we're gonna have to have a visit
We'll
later.
talk.
Any further discussion?
One more question.
Yes.
Does this need to go through the Haysville zoning plating board?
Not that I'm aware, but Debbie. who knows
Deb's
much
on
more
it.
about
I'm asking you.
Should I pick up the phone and call Timmy?
I don't believe it.
Okay.
Okay, it doesn't require, even though it's going in the creek?
It's not a new line as part of the reason, one of the reasons why. It's simply replacing an old line.
The school district owns the property.
That's correct.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried 5-1.
Thank you.
First reading, capital outlay.
Okay, so here's the process for going through capital outlay. It actually starts in November. We send out information to all buildings, principals and directors and department heads. And we ask them to meet with their faculty, constituents, site councils, all of those people involved, and they develop a list of capital needs. We do the same thing at the district level when it comes to different district departments. We compile all of those lists of needs. We do it on a running 3-year capital outlay need. Put all of those together, and then we look at our funding and we start to identify the top priority items that fit within our current funding structure. In capital outlay, we don't have quite as much authority as many of the districts around us. And we have 3 main expenditures that eat up majority of our budget. One is we do currently still pay some maintenance and custodial salaries out of capital outlay, which we're allowed to, which were moved over back in 2008 during the block grant funding years. We moved quite a bit of those salaries over a 2-year period when we weren't receiving additional revenue. Then we also pay for our RICO service and RICO devices throughout the district. And then we also pay for some QZABs, which are qualified zone academy bonds that were done, I forget the year, 2001, I think. I'm trying to remember. We have 2 sets of them for about $3 million total. We're about to pay off 1 set of them. But those are bonds we use to do some energy improvements throughout the district. That was really before I started in here. I finished up the project when I first came in. And so we paid to do some energy efficient upgrades throughout the district and we received bonds. Those bonds are a 0%, so we don't pay an interest on them, but we do have an annual payment to slowly pay those off. Matter of fact, I filed the paperwork today to get our reimbursement from the feds for our next payment in May on those bonds. And so with those three items, it reduces our available funds for capital improvements or maintenance, because remember, that's a large part of this. And so in going through our needs lists, when we started to identify things like the gym floors, the parking lot maintenance, even the bus replacements because of aging buses and where we're at with those, the field maintenance, these are all annual maintenance items that we need to complete to avoid larger expenditures down the road. A good example is, trying to remember the exact year, when we didn't do parking lot maintenance over at Ruth Clark, and it's about 10 times the cost to replace versus doing the annual maintenance. And so we didn't do the maintenance for several years. The cracks got too big, we couldn't repair them, and we had to end up replacing part of that parking lot. It gets very expensive. So what's currently on the needs list are items that fall under replacement of some equipment that's aging, maintaining some facilities in certain areas to ensure we don't incur additional costs, replacing the buses, and we're still paying off on part of our Rex roof replacement from the previous bond, and this is where we pay it out. So this is where these came from.
How much more is left on that Rex roof?
About $1 million.
Wow. Roofs are not cheap, folks.
It was almost a $2 million project to replace that entire roof. It's one of the reasons we usually can't do that unless we go to a bond.
Couple of questions.
Yeah.
Campus parking lot.
Yes.
Which parking lot is
This
this?
would be their west parking lot. And remember, that's the one where we added and extended in the bond. And remember, we had a lot of old parts of that.
That's the east parking lot, isn't
You
it?
mean the east one?
Yeah. I apologize,
This
east
west
parking
is
lot. West we did last time.
Yeah,
East
gotcha.
parking lot.
I was so confused. with it too, like,
Right.
wait, why that one?
Face north.
But it was the west, and now that we're out of the bond, it's been a few years, we're starting to see those cracks, and so we actually need to do the maintenance on that whole thing.
Okay. The other thing, there's been a lot of conversation, at least in the elementary schools, from the teachers about, the little ones have been having breakfast and lunch and everything in their elementary rooms, and the carpets
Yeah.
have been nasty to the point where they just can't be cleaned.
And they're old.
What's the situation on being able to rotate through those, or kind of what's the game plan there?
Well, they're lower on the list. We have some other items like some leaking roofs, replacement of part of the track that's been peeling up. We're gonna have to repair it again this year. That actually meet a higher safety need. I will tell you that some of those, like carpet replacement, probably will not be able to be addressed unless we come up with a maintenance bond or a bond that addresses some of the maintenance, like replacement of some rooftop units and those types of items. Because which elementary would we like to do?
Yeah.
And then you start.
Who gets
And
first
it
dibs? I
is
get it.
possible. Right now, one of the plans is to try to reserve some money in our capital outlay. So over the next couple of years, we could have enough money in capital outlay to replace the track. It is getting to the point where we will maintain it and make it as safe as possible, but those annual costs are going up every year just to maintain it.
Speaking of costs, are these costs going to escalate, or are these locked in, these numbers?
These are all locked in numbers for this current. We did see quotes and bids on ones we could that were information, but like the bus bids, we have to put that out to bid. So that's why it's the next item on my presentation.
So I know that, obviously Rex had a roof issue that we took care of, or we're still taking care of. But obviously their parking lot suffers a lot when we have any kind of rain at all, where kids can't even get into the door without it just being soaked, trying to get through some of those low-lying spots.
Yeah.
And I know that that's probably lower on the list.
Yeah. I know.
I hate to put in like the whole wish list of everything and what that looks like,
Oh,
but
it's huge.
I'm sure it is.
Multiple pages on a spreadsheet.
I'm
And
sure
if
it
you
is.
remember correctly, in our previous bond, There's still items on that previous bond of our original estimate of $135 million worth of needs. And we had to whittle that down to 59 million. There are several items on there we just have not addressed yet, and we're starting to see the detrimental effect, and it may cost us more over time. I could not advocate at this point in time to go out to a bond, because let's take, for example, the rooftop units.
For sure.
We're starting to see on an annual basis, some of them are giving way. Prairie had one pretty much explode the other day. So we lost a lot of glycol, which, by the way, was safe glycol. So everybody's watching, this is environmentally safe. It wasn't anything that, but again, Prairie's not that old of a school, but that's what we start to see happen.
Right. So we have kids going in with wet shoes and wet socks and wet pants, and just because there's no way to get in those doors without being soaked, because it's all low lining.
And we try to address as many of those as we possibly can.
Sure. I mean,
for example, we're
money.
too afraid to even drive the tractor over there. The engine block is held together with some bolts right now. It's that old, and we bought it used originally. So that's kind of why these are here.
On the Nelson Gym in the West Gym number 2, those are both fairly new.
They are.
So,
but remember, these are screenings. This is like the annual maintenance, or we rotate them. We don't do them every year. We do some gyms, like the ones at the high school, to get way more use than anywhere else. We do them on an annual basis. But if we didn't do that, in about 4 years, we're going to have to do the complete resurface, and that is so much more expensive.
so this
These are
is,
just
they're on
screenings.
like a 3-year cycle then?
Yeah, we rotate through all of the wooden floor gyms. And again, that's just part of the annual maintenance on a facility to avoid the higher cost of a complete refinish.
But aren't some of the gyms used more for like bitty basketball and?
Yeah.
And so there is a usage, like on this field maintenance, are these grass or?
These are grass.
Okay.
And remember, we spent quite a bit of money on that practice field over there for HMS behind Rex, and Rex uses it, the community uses it, and we had to replace the pump for the sprinkler system just recently. If we don't do this maintenance, that grass will die, and we'll lose all the money we spent on it. And we need to have a nice facility for our community to use and our students. That's what we do it for.
When can you remind the board right now the amount of money that's being utilized to cover salaries for maintenance staff? Just an estimate.
We're at 1.5 million out of capital outlay. So we have a plan to start moving it back, but remember, that plan requires using new money. And every time we run into a situation where we're running out of money, it's hard to put that new money towards. Basically, we would say take that new money and put it towards capital, and we're just going to have to work on that. It's just so hard to move it back. But we really did not have a choice at the time. You remember correctly, it was block grant funding. We were still growing, needing new staff, but receiving no new funding.
Any other questions for Dr. Schutte? All right, let's go on to 7.2 bus purchase.
Okay, and then that is just so that we can try to get out into the market. Originally, when we would look at replacing buses, again, we try to be as efficient as possible in specifying the type of bus we use. We still evaluate the cost on other types of buses, from International to Thomas all the way through. We found by using a singular type of bus, a Bluebird bus, we have local service and maintenance. We also have the ability to cannibalize buses before we sell them on when they get too old, and reuse parts. And right now, with the parts market, when it comes to maintenance, if we didn't have the same types of buses, we may be running into a transportation issue, because we have had to take parts from a bus that was involved in an accident to make sure we had other buses running. Thank goodness they were both Bluebird, because then those parts worked. So this is a request to get out into the market, knowing that in the past, it could have taken 6 to 8 months to receive a bus once the bid was brought back to the board and approved by the Board of Education. Now we're seeing 12 months to 18 months sometimes their estimates are, you'll get it in 2 years.
But when you say bids, this has been going on for years.
Yep.
We're still actually only going to one vendor, Bluebird of Kansas.
That is correct.
So we're giving them our spec, however it changed. So we still do not go to Bluebird of Oklahoma, Missouri. We still stick with Bluebird of
Well, I
Kansas.
will correct you there. We do send it them, and all of them will tell you,
Reject.
we will not bid on Kansas because we're not licensed to sell Bluebirds in Kansas. If you want to do that, you have to go to or dealership in Kansas, and there is only one.
Kind
So
of
it's
got
not
us
a- it's
over a
not a
barrel.
true bid. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. It's not really a true bid, and they've got us over a barrel if we're gonna use Bluebird. And it's not just necessarily Bluebird, it's any of them.
But we
Are all
have
set
done
up
the
the same?
comparison. If you want to take our specs and compare it to an International or Thomas, they're going to come into about a $2,000 difference, sometimes over, sometimes under. They're not significantly different.
It's collusion or.
Well, that's a whole
Monopoly.
industry question. I can't.
No, that's just my opinion.
Now that I know it's February, just so we're all on board here.
Just today is
Today.
February.
It
yeah.
changes tomorrow.
What year is it?
I did.
What
We'll
year
text
is
you
it?
tomorrow with. the
Come on,
update.
you guys, give me a little break here.
What year is it?
It does say, stop it. When we bring back the bids to the February board meeting, you actually mean March?
It'll be March.
Just on top of it.
I got this one thing right, y'all.
I was trying to get this ready for January.
January, okay, gotcha.
I didn't get this.
I feel your pain, that's all I'm saying. Okay. Okay.
Just wanted to point out, she's not the only one who has a problem with the month.
Hasn't got a clue what
Oh,
day
there
it
you
is.
go. I'm getting older, I forget as well, so.
Any other questions for Dr. Schutte? Sir?
Thank you.
Future agenda items.
The social emotional. The survey,
Gallup student poll.
thank you.
It's on for March.
Okay.
We just got the scores back, so
Okay,
I'll get
perfect,
it on March.
perfect. The one that keeps rolling around in my head.
No, that's fine.
Debbie, what else do we have on for March?
For summer help, Gallup poll. Healthy relationships for ninth grade students, and then the first 3 weeks.
They probably won't bring the healthy relationships.
relationship.
Until afterwards, yeah.
When, what month, June, I mean,
We'll bring it, we will bring the healthy relation, an observation and a report back to the board. Why don't we put June? That'll be after school ends and we can put a plan together to have that done.
We have more handbooks,
yes.
never ending handbooks.
Right now, it will be, but well, we've got 2 new handbooks coming.
Would you also bring, add on their strategic plan? KSB, I've got a proposal from KSB to lead our strategic plan in August. And so I'll bring that information to the board in March.
At some point, do you want me to do some kind of a report about?
Yeah, why don't we look at that maybe in May, or I mean in April? In April, we'll have the foundation
Foundation.
update, education foundation update. And that'll be Dr. Norton will be involved in that.
Anything else? Board calendar? You got anything there?
It's gonna be a short meeting next month.
Yep.
Make up for this one and the last one. Okay. All right, we need to have 2 executive sessions tonight. The first executive session is in regards to negotiation and matters relating to employer-employee negotiations, whether or not in consultation with the representatives of the body or agency. This is to protect the district's rights to confidentiality to employees. And I'd like to have Dr. Schutte, Dr. Clegg, Mr. Hirsch, along with the board for 10 minutes.
So
Second.
Got a motion by Jeremy, a second by Jennifer. All in favor? Opposed?
We're here another 3 hours.
February
Jen and Dr. Platter.
Go ahead. Is Jen on here?
Yeah, I've added her after
Okay.
conversation.
We are going to go back, I'd like to go back in for another executive session for non-elected personnel. Matters for non-elected personnel, justification to protect the privacy and interests of identifiable individuals to include Dr. Flagg, Mr. Hirsch, and Miss Jennifer. 1 minute. Motion by Mr. Jeremy and seconded by Miss Susan. All in favor? Motion carried. See you in 20.
Uh-huh.
It's the only thing that's keeping me awake.
All right, we'd like to continue on with this executive session for 15 minutes.
So move.
Second. A motion and a second to continue for another 15 minutes on the executive session. All in favor? Thank you.
I just point.
Count them up. Everybody's left us.
Raising your step count.
We have returned and we're going to go back into executive session for another 5 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
And a motion by Miss Susan and a second by Mr. Jeremy to go back in for 5 minutes. All in favor? Thank you.
I miss you, Debbie.
Yeah, well, hurry up.
time, Debbie. I don't kid, Debbie. I'm serious.
So much crap there that I need what I don't need. You turn the cameras back on.
All
right, still live?
We are live.
I'm not gonna invite you to executive session yet.
All right, let us show that have all returned from executive session and no binding decisions were made at that time. So we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you for your time this evening.
He's getting squirrely. Keep him up past his
Not a
bedtime and he
problem.
gets all squirrely. It must be what it is. He said he's gonna eat chocolate. It would keep him up and now he's like.
Like a little kid.